Daniels backing up. He's just going to have to let one fly. Goes to the right side. Steps away from the defenders. Gives himself some time. Now steps up, fires. Heads towards the end zone. It is
These are the kind of touchdown calls, the kind of play-by-play calls that you just absolutely dream of having. Jayden Daniels, Hail Mary for the win. 3 letters. It's not the usual 3 letters the Washington Commander fans are chanting, but they'll take FTW as Jayden Daniels shows his guns and throws a Hail Mary touchdown pass to win the game. You and I talked about this last week in terms of if Jayden Daniels would play coming off of an injury. And what does he do? He goes out and absolutely stuns the crowd in a very good game. Caleb Williams played good as well, but you just don't see, Diesel, as long as you watch the game of football, you don't see many plays like you saw on Sunday. Jayden Daniels might indeed be him.
Remember when we all thought this is what Bryce Young was going to be?
That was a short-lived moment.
Yeah. Look, I love calls like that. I love listening to calls like that. And I love them even more because, let's be real, technically it's bad radio. It's
bad but good.
It's bad but good,
yeah.
Right? Like, how many times have we heard the color guys and the other guys in the booth just yelling because they've got the exuberance, right? And they're just, oh my God.
So
and the play-by-play guy's trying to tell everybody what just happened, but he can't because everybody's yelling in pure pandemonium.
Now,
it's great. It's great radio, but it's terrible radio at the same time.
It's not as polished as the TV call.
And it's going to be getting longer by the second. You're all the way back at the 30-yard line.
So she said.
Now you can step into it. Here comes the Hail Mary with the game on the line. And the ball is caught! Caught! It's a miracle! It's Noah Brown! Oh, my goodness!
The TV call might be just as good. Both are great, but the moment in itself, just an incredible moment, Diesel. Yeah. However, I have a huge issue with that being allowed to happen. 13 seconds. And if you don't know how long 13 seconds is, 13 seconds is a very long time, Diesel, for a quarterback to be able to throw a football and not have any pressure. And that's my biggest issue with Jayden Daniels having 13 seconds to write a book.
Do you guys want to know how long 13 seconds is? Cole, stop talking. Don't say a word right now. That's 13 seconds.
God, that's a long time.
That's how long he had it in NFL pocket to get rid of the ball. It's insane how much time he had available to him. When you consider, Cole, that they're teaching NFL quarterbacks to get the ball out in less than 3 seconds.
Yeah. Tom Brady did.
He had more than quadruple that amount of time. I noticed how you even had to put bed music behind it because you were getting uncomfortable with 13 seconds.
Yeah, had a little Jeopardy
starting
music.
to itch a little bit like, oh, man, somebody say something,
right.
would you?
Doesn't feel right.
Somebody say something. This dead air is terrible.
It's terrible. I'll tell you what else is terrible, Diesel, and this is where I want to start. How in the world, as a defense, as a coaching staff, when you practice these, because teams practice Hail Marys every week, whatever day they choose to practice them, Diesel, whether it's a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday, they practice Hail Marys every single week. Every NFL team does. So, yes, it was an incredible game. But I have a huge issue with how defenses play Hail Marys. You rushed 3 guys. You left Jayden Daniels, Diesel, with 13 seconds to get the ball off. It was horrible execution by the Bears defense. And I mean horrible. There was no knockdown. When you practice that, there's a knockdown guy, there's a back guy, somebody who stands behind the receivers to make sure what happened last night doesn't happen. and there was a wide open Noah Brown, former Dallas Cowboy, by the way.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not suggesting Diesel play cover 3, cover 4, and leave guys one-on-one on the outside. But for goodness sake, you can't give a quarterback 13 seconds to get the pass off. There's got to be more pass rush on the quarterback when that play happens for him not to have 13 seconds. At least bring one more guy and put pressure on the quarterback in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I know you want to put as many guys back in coverage as you possibly can, but it was textbook how the Commanders played that. You have to have one guy behind the scrum to catch the ball if it's tipped backwards. You have to have one guy in front of the scrum a couple yards out in front of everybody else to catch it if it gets tipped that way. I mean, it was absolutely perfect. Cole. And look, I know a lot of texters and a lot of people the last 24 hours or so or 18 hours or so have been going after Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback for the Bears, who was taunting going down the field. And we already had a texter who got in and said it wouldn't have been that long if the one cornerback wasn't back there taunting fans. Texter, I assume that cornerback was meant to be all the way down by the goal line. So that cornerback wasn't rushing the quarterback. So I'm not sure how. Look,
it was a bad look.
It's a bad look. It's a very, very bad look. And but if you notice, that cornerback did turn his head as the ball was being snapped, and he got in on the play.
He did.
He might have been a little late to the play, but him possibly being late to the play, we'd have to go back and watch him every step of the way. Him being a little bit late to that play, Cole, may not have had anything at all to do with the ball being tipped up and back and right into the hands of a wide open Commander's wide receiver. So look, a lot of people are going after him for his immaturity, and by God, please do.
Yeah.
Please go after this guy for being immature. I'm just not saying that it necessarily had some tremendous effect on that play.
No, I'm with you. Look, I think Diesel, from a defensive back standpoint, when you're in a prevent defense and you're 50 yards away from the line of scrimmage, just like if you were sitting in the front row of the stands, it doesn't seem like your job is that big of a deal. It doesn't seem like you have a responsibility big enough to where they can't win the game on a 50-plus yard walk-off Hail Mary by Jaden Daniels. However, first of all, the very first step in that entire play is, guess what? Jaden Daniels has to have the arm to get the ball in the end zone, right? Mm-hmm. And guess what? He did. He got the ball there. It was just a yard or two short. It was tipped up in the air. Noah Brown caught in the end zone. And I'm glad Madcraft asked it on the stream, because I asked a question a few weeks ago when Aaron Rodgers had his Hail Mary. Madcraft says, now ask again. What's more impressive, the pass or the catch? And I'm glad Madcraft brought that up, because the entire play was impressive. But there was a big debate on a show this morning that I was listening to, Diesel, where the 4-letter word was used and people had an issue with it. Luck. I don't know if you can watch that play and without a shadow of a doubt say definitely that there was no luck involved, because I think there is a little bit of luck involved.
I go back and forth with Rob Brown quite a bit, mostly because it's just fun to mess with him.
Yeah.
But he's got a promo that runs that says luck is not a real thing.
Yeah.
Luck is not a real thing. No matter what anybody says, it's not a real thing. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time. You did what you were supposed to do, and the ball came your way. It's not like there's some external force called luck. Like it's a concept. It's not the force from Star Wars. It's not pushing the ball in a certain direction towards a wide open wide receiver. It's a fanciful thing to talk about, but I don't think that it's real.
See, I think it is. I think what happened last night, the receiver being there, obviously, he was doing his job. I think luck is being in the right place at the right time, right? Especially if I walk outside today and all of a sudden a dump truck that's going down Garlington Road right there is carrying cash. It gets slammed into the side of, and cash just starts going everywhere. And I'm just standing there, and I just get to grab 5, bags full of cash, Diesel, on my way out tonight. I'd consider that I was a pretty lucky guy in the instance. So my point to this pass that was caught, Noah Brown standing there, yes, he was supposed to be behind the guys, but the fact that that ball was tipped up and not batted down shocks the you-know-what out of me that those guys aren't smart enough, aren't disciplined enough to simply bat the ball down instead of going up and just using your fingers and tipping it up in the air. It's a fantastic catch by Noah Brown. But my point is, let's not act like what Noah Brown did was some special, special. It was a special instance, a special catch, because literally the ball fell in Noah Brown's chest, right?
Yeah, Cole, and I look at a lot of games that we've seen this year, and I feel like we're seeing the college game, the style of play in the college game really make its way into the NFL, right? Yep. I think we're starting to see more big plays. We're starting to see more blowouts. We're starting to see fewer lower scoring defensive struggles where it's a 17-14 kind of football game. We're seeing big blowouts. We're seeing big plays, which is not something, you saw as much of in college or in the NFL as you did in college football. The reason why you saw that in college football is because there was a talent discrepancy. And I think there is I don't know if it's a talent discrepancy is the reason why we're seeing this as much in the NFL. I think it's lack of coaching talent. I think it's lack of discipline among some of these players. So you've got good players on both sides of the football, but some of them just aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And so we're seeing more of these blowouts. And I think it makes it if you're a fan of college football, it makes it a more compelling product. It makes it a more compelling thing to watch. If you're an OG fan of the NFL where it's, 10-9 kind of games or 10-7 kind of games or 14-10 kind of games, it's not for you anymore.
Texter says, yeah, but he was late getting to the play and people were already halfway down the field. Definitely check the video. Texter says he was the one who tipped the ball. He was out of position and out of focus. Another texter says, I heard the guy taunting was the guy who tipped it. Another texter, luck is definitely not a real thing. I agree with Rob. And another, here I am reading ham text, Diesel. That's not for us. Apologize for that. I don't know what ham means. We see a lot of ham text on our text line, but
ham radio.
That's
what they're texting about is ham radio.
So look, it's a fantastic play. I loved it. I mean, you don't get much better plays than that in the history of sports. Like that made the NFL weekend. Wesley Roberts, Diesel, you'll like this one on the Facebook stream, says, headlines after the Hail Mary, Caleb Williams loses a nail-biter.
That's great.
That's a good one.
This was such a fun weekend in the NFL.
Man,
watching Aaron Rodgers taking on the chin again to a bad football team.
Yeah.
A previously looking hopeless football team.
It was
losing to a rookie quarterback. I love what we saw in the NFL this weekend.
I'm glad you brought that up because there were two other things that I had NFL related before we move on in the next segment. Number one, why all of a sudden, Diesel, can Deshaun Watson be removed from a situation and Jameis Winston step in and beat the Baltimore freaking Ravens? Jameis Winston looked good. The Browns looked good yesterday. So maybe we learned yesterday that the Browns still have a lot of talent, especially on defense, because they were phenomenal defensively yesterday. And maybe we just learned that Deshaun Watson's broken and Jameis Winston's better than we thought.
Look, we saw it with the Panthers when Andy Dalton came in for the first time, 5 weeks ago? It feels like it was, 10 years ago, the last time the Carolina Panthers got a win. But the team played out of their minds for a new quarterback. And that Carolina Panthers team, I get it, you had a few more pieces than what you have now due to injury, but they weren't some insanely different looking team with a completely different roster. Sometimes just shaking things up changes the way a team feels, changes the mentality of a team, changes their desire and their want to. Like, what if the defense hated Deshaun Watson's guts? What if the defense knew that no matter what they did, a Bryce Young-led offense wasn't going to score enough points for them to win a football game? And after a while, that starts to play on you. And you stop giving 100% on every single play. And all of a sudden, you bring in a new quarterback, and it breathes new life into a team. I understand in the NFL, and it's increasingly becoming more of a thing in college, when you say, oh, we paid all this money. We gave this guy a fat new contract. We got to play him. Well, what is your desire to do here? What is your job as a GM and a football coach? Your job is to win football games, not make the highest paid member on the team happy. right? Your job is to go win football games. So you change some things up. You go out there and you get a win. And man, I don't know if it's going to last forever. Most of the time it doesn't. I mean, think about Fitzmagic a couple of years ago. Great story for a little while, and then it fades away. Andy Dalton, great story for a week, and then it fades away. We'll see.
Yeah, I just think at the end of the day, Jameis Winston's – and I don't push back on anything you said, but at the end of the day, having a better quarterback out there matters. And Jameis Winston's a better quarterback. Brandon on the Facebook stream says this was Jameis' first start since getting LASIK eye surgery. It's going to be lethal now. I'm rooting for the guy, though, for real. And I am too. He's a fantastic, person. His demeanor, his personality, the way he rallies the locker room, it's fantastic to watch. He seems like a really good guy and seems like somebody that's easy to root for. And boy, has he changed that team in a dramatic way. So a ton of positive in Cleveland, Diesel. However, the last thing I want to touch on NFL related before we move on is something that let's see who brought it up on the stream. Whit Vineset said, how about those Cowboys, Cole? Well, I'm officially here to tell you, Diesel, that the Cowboys season is 100% over. They're done. They might as well just pack it in and tank for the best spot in the draft because they absolutely suck.
So what you're saying is it's just a normal season for the Dallas Cowboys?
No, that's 100% incorrect because normally they go 12-5.
Oh, okay.
12-5. They've been 12-5, just so you know, the past 3 seasons. Usually they crash in the postseason, the playoffs. They've never been this bad in the regular season. They usually have a fantastic regular season and then crash in the playoffs. So Dallas fans aren't used to being this bad this early. Usually it comes in January. However, Diesel, I don't place 100% of the blame on Dak. I place close to 50% on Dak. The reason that I don't put all of the blame on Dak is Brock Purdy last night in the 49ers-Dallas game had 56 yards rushing. Guess what? That was the exact same as the entire Cowboys team. The entire Cowboys team rushed for 56 yards. Brock Purdy had 56 yards. And by the way, he's not even a running quarterback. So Dallas has no rushing attack. Absolutely none. The Cowboys offense, Diesel, is dead last in red zone offense, dead last in rush offense, and dead last in rush defense. The reality is there isn't a quarterback on God's green earth right now that can have that team winning games. With the worst red zone offense, worst rushing attack, and worst rush defense, this right now, to me, is more on Jerry Jones than it is Dak. Dallas is now 3-4, and Jerry did nothing in the offseason to help this team. The bottom line is the Cowboys stink, and it's all of them that stink. You can point or throw a dart, Diesel, at the Cowboys, and wherever the dart lands, you can rightfully place blame because everybody right now deserves blame. It's time to just call it quits.
Well, I'm waiting for agents, and we all know what agents' job is to do. It agents' job is to get the most money for their individual client, bar none. That is their job. I'm waiting for some intrepid agent to get into his client's email, text messages, get into his head and say, if we're able to extract this kind of money out of your team, they'll have nothing around you. You'll lose. You'll be highly paid.
Yeah.
But you'll lose a lot of football games because, simply speaking, you cannot earn this much money and expect your team to be able to put a winning product around you. It just can't happen.
No, I agree with you. And that's the sad reality of the way the NFL is structured.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you pay the Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, you pay the highest players at quarterback, Diesel, because the quarterbacks are going to make more than anybody else. That's the double-edged sword, right? That's what you get in return when you pay a quarterback is, hey, now you've got this billion-dollar quarterback, but you don't have any money to go get Derrick Henry in the offseason. You don't have any money to get anybody else, and that's the price you pay. That's why a lot of people push all their chips in with rookie quarterbacks. And the last thing I'll say is that's why the Washington Commanders, Diesel, before Jaden Daniels' rookie contract is up, they should push all the chips in to win right now in the next 3 years and get everybody they can, stack that roster before they have to pay them because eventually they will.
Yeah, eventually it'll be trade them or
pay them.
Pay them.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. Cole, speaking of speaking of tragedy over the weekend, all but 2 of the Tolos who got in their upset picks. This is just, we're not going into this in the next segment, but all but 2 of the Tolos who got their picks in last week were wrong.
It's a bad weekend.
Think about that. We set a record for the most ever number of Tolos in the challenge. And I think we also just set a record for the most number of wrong picks because we had exactly 2.
So we broke the record of 120?
Yeah, we did.
And 2 of 120 something got it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my.
And
word.
one of them was gravy. So that means over the weekend, only 1 Tolo got their upset pick correct. That'll blow your mind. When we come back, I'll tell you who it was, as a matter of fact, when we come back on the other side of the break. But Cole, does South Carolina have a gripe that there are teams around them getting a lot more votes with equal or lesser resumes? We'll talk about the AP next. The number of expletives that Cole Bryson texted me Saturday after Duke was given what? 4 turnovers? 5 turnovers?
No.
6 turnovers? 6 turnovers from SMU.
6.
And still couldn't win the football game.
I have never in my life been so mad.
Oh,
And
man.
here's the best part. I was sending out a tweet, Diesel, at the end of regulation. Duke, stay with me on this. Duke's lined up to kick the game-winning field goal, 26-yarder, to win the game in regulation. I'm sending out a tweet about winning my upset pick. Field goal lines up, 26-yard. No, there's 2 seconds on the clock. Field goal's blocked.
Oh, man.
Overtime, Duke loses.
So, Cole, just pretend for a second. That you had tweeted that.
Yeah.
Are you the kind of guy that would take it down or leave it up for all to see?
If they were to have lost,
Yeah.
well, I wouldn't have ever tweeted it until they lost or until they won.
Let's just say you got a little like premature
I
on
was taking it down
because we all know Freezing Takes Exposed.
Yeah.
On Twitter that loves finding stuff like that and putting it out there. By the way, 11 Tolos took that game, including Cole, and I looked very hard at it.
God.
Now, I mean, like if you want to take a little bit of solace, Cole, I thought Illinois had something for Oregon, and I was very wrong.
How do you have 6 turnovers and lose a game, though? I mean, I want any football mind to answer that. 6 turnovers and you lose. Handed to you. Malik Murphy, Diesel, should be benched. I'll get into this later in Overreaction Monday. Grayson Loftus from right here in the upstate would have won that game in regulation, but the stupid idiot coach and Manny Diaz, he should be fired. Duke is a freaking joke. Cost me the upset pick 2 weeks in a row. God.
Speaking of which, only 2 Tolos, Cole. Only 2 got their week 9 upset picks correct. One of them we spent some time talking about last week. We're only going to call him Gravy from here on out. You know who we're talking about. He scored 26 points in the challenge because he somehow, I don't know, how do you even think to pick this game, let alone say that's a good idea? He took Kennesaw State over Liberty and got 26 points.
Unbelievable.
So now Gravy finds himself in 22nd place. I don't think he'd ever picked a game before.
He's been in the challenge for 2 weeks.
He's been in the challenge
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And guess what?
So
he's hit twice.
All you Tolos. No, that's the first one he's ever hit.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's the first one he's ever hit. So all you Tolos, we try to tell you, you can just pull one out of your you-know-what and get in the top half of this leaderboard. Gravy did it. He took Kennesaw State to upset Liberty. He's got 26 points now, and he finds himself tied for 22nd place. And we're going to get deep into the standings later on in the show. Don't worry, Tolos. And we're also going to get those posted up on Twitter here in the next break. But our only other Tolo who got their upset pick right was Ruby Downs, our great friend over at Ingles Markets. She took Auburn to beat Kentucky.
Yeah.
She got 1.5 points, so she's back on the board. Look at Ruby Downs back on the board. That's awesome to see. We love Ruby around here. We really do. And
Mark Yellow Ducks Diesel says, by the way, Cole, I'm surprised to see you here and not in the emergency room after your weekend upset pick and the Cowgirls. Thanks, Mark.
Absurdity. What a tragic weekend
it was, man,
for Cole Bryson.
Really
and Cole's a country music fan. He didn't get to watch the concert for Carolinas because he was too busy doing other things.
No, I was too late getting in on the ticket. You know, if you weren't the first 4 million in line, I think it sold out in 4 hours.
Well, this made me mad, Cole. I found this out after the fact that when they realized how many tickets they were selling, they decided to move the stage to the middle of the field, and they opened up some more tickets on the floor.
I didn't know that.
Field level for $200 a ticket. Some people were spending like $2,000 for that. If I was one of those people who spent $2,000, like, you can't be that jerk, right? That calls up and says, hey, I spent $2,000 for field level, and then they just open some up for $200. I want some of my money back.
You can't do that. Tickets for $500.
Yeah,
and then make your at least make $300 in the process. But yeah, you're right, Mark. It was a tough weekend for me. I was very, very upset watching Duke.
Unbelievable weekend. And that's the record for the most number of picks we've ever had and the record for most number of wrong picks we've ever had in a week. Speaking of getting it wrong, Cole, I've seen a lot of big name pundits out there who got a big problem with South Carolina only getting one vote in this week's AP Top 25. Now, I understand that South Carolina was off
they were
this weekend. I get it. So you don't have the data point. Had they won, they clearly would have been higher up. They might have even been ranked after this week, Cole. But the problem that a lot of people have is that Missouri still finds themselves ranked after getting blown out multiple times this season. South Carolina's only been blown out once against a very good Ole Miss.
And it wasn't even really blown out.
Well, it was.
24-3?
It was blown out, Cole. It completely non-competitive. Sure, you didn't give up 55 points.
Yeah, it could have been
worse. But it was a completely non-competitive game where anybody who watched it knew that South Carolina couldn't get off the mat, right? This was a Rocky movie. He had been knocked out. He ain't getting back up. So this is not, again, I'm not manufacturing some beef. A lot of people out there have a big-time problem. Brad Crawford, who we both know and read his work and respect his work.
I don't know about but
well, okay. He's been talking about it a lot. I've seen other pundits talking about it quite a bit. Gamecock fans are talking about this, and rightfully so. You should be pissed.
Yeah,
you should be pissed that Missouri, 6-2, lost to Alabama 34-0 on Saturday, is still ranked inside the AP Top 25. And you guys are sniffing one single solitary vote.
I'm with you.
Should Gamecock fans be mad about this call? I had one Gamecock fan tweet me over the weekend and say, well, what have we done? Who have we beaten? What have we accomplished really?
Well,
and that's a lot of measure for a Gamecock fan to say. That's a lot of measure for any fan to say.
Here's the question I would turn to that Gamecock fan and ask. Diesel, what's Missouri done? What has Missouri done this season to be even in the top 25? You beat Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College,
that's your only good win.
Backtracked a little bit. Vandy, you mentioned double overtime. You beat UMass, and you beat an Auburn team that sucks. You barely beat them by 4 points, and you got the door stomped off by Alabama. Yeah. I don't understand why they're even in the top 25.
So to compare resumes here between South Carolina and Missouri, and look, we're going to get a lot more crossover in the coming weeks. That's when a lot of the teams that Missouri's already played, South Carolina will play, and vice versa. And of course, they'll play each other, right? Mm-hmm. So good wins. Missouri has a 27-21 win over Boston College. That's a decent win at this point. A 30-27 double overtime win against Vandy. Yeah. That's it. That's the only good thing on Missouri's schedule this year. South Carolina have a blowout win on the road at Kentucky and a blowout win on the road at Oklahoma. I get it. Neither Kentucky nor Oklahoma are top 25 teams, top 15 teams. I get it. But in South Carolina's wins against good SEC opponents, decent Oklahoma, yeah. But against SEC opponents, they're working people. They're working teams where Missouri is struggling to get wins and they need overtime to beat the likes of Vandy.
And what's bad is we talked about it going into the season. Their schedule was not good compared to other schedules.
Right.
And they're not even handling the teams that they're supposed to be handling. That's the bad part.
Bad losses. Missouri, again, took the 41-10 road loss at Texas A&M, where they were not competitive. And they took a 34-0 shellacking on the road at Alabama. So they've got two good wins and two bad losses. South Carolina has two good wins and one bad loss. You see what I'm saying? Like when you start comparing resumes, South Carolina, I'm not saying they should be top 25, and Dan B's with me on that as well. I'm not saying South Carolina and Missouri should flip. I'm just saying if you're going to use the same criteria, by those criteria, there's no reason for Missouri to be a top 25 team when you're getting exactly one vote. And I don't know who that one AP voter is. I'm sure we could go find it somewhere and figure out who that guy is. Probably the South Carolina writer. Nothing wrong with showing some love to your boys.
Yeah.
But like it's absurd that Missouri has still a ranking, still has a number next to their name, in South Carolina does not. Against common opponents, Alabama, that's the only one they've had. Missouri got blown out, and South Carolina lost by 2.
The reality is, though, the texter's right, and JB on the stream is right as well. No right to be mad, says JB. Beat LSU and Bama and would be in the top 15. Enough said. Texter also kind of echoes that and says, can't say it enough. That LSU game is going to, I believe he meant cost the Gamecocks in many ways. Rankings, bowl games, coaches retained. The one home win would, let me click on the rest of the text here. The one home win would haunt the Gamecocks. And I agree, Diesel, with what you're saying about Missouri. I don't know if you look at the two teams right now, one of them, if you have to say one of them's in the top 25 of the AP poll, I just don't know how you can say Missouri deserves to be in over South Carolina. And again, JB, I'm with you. The LSU loss, the Bama loss, you win either one of those, you're in the top 25. And yeah, you win both of them, you're in the top 15, and you're a playoff team still to this point. But Diesel, when you look at the two, what do you have to actually compare them? Because we just talked about it. They haven't played each other. So I think South Carolina's strength of schedule is the number one thing you should look at.
Yeah.
And South Carolina's strength of schedule is better than Missouri's strength of schedule. South Carolina, if you use the eye test, South Carolina has the better defense. Maybe they don't have the better receivers. Maybe the quarterback there's still some question there when you compare the two quarterbacks. But to me, South Carolina is the better team. And I think if one of the two have to be in the top 25 of the AP poll, I believe it should be South Carolina, even though they didn't beat Alabama, even though they didn't beat LSU. The reality is the people who make up that poll still have to use judgment, even in losses. And Missouri's losses have not been good losses. South Carolina's had one, to your point, one bad loss, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we have to judge their thought process, and I think we have to examine their heads a little bit and figure out what it is about Missouri that still has these AP voters believing in them, if not just a little bit. So again, we said there's a lot of crossover coming up. Missouri's going to play Oklahoma on November 9th. South Carolina will play Texas A&M and Vanderbilt, who Missouri has already played in the next 2 weeks. And then, of course, they'll face off head-to-head November 16th in Columbia, Cole. I'm shaking my head at this, and I'm also looking at the teams that are near South Carolina in the others receiving votes category and trying to figure out, is there a single team that's anywhere near them that South Carolina would not absolutely go out and smash on the field, right? Like, there's a big jump between the first 4 or 5 in the others receiving votes. And those guys, those are like the Navies of the world, the Vanderbilts of the world that are getting, 20, 25 votes.
Yeah.
And then there's a big drop off to the teams below them. So let's look at the teams that are immediately surrounding South Carolina in the others receiving votes category. South Carolina's got 1. Louisiana, Cole, has 3. UNLV has 4. Arkansas has 4. And Louisville has 5. Show me one of those teams right now that South Carolina would not go out there and beat by a score of 35-14.
Louisville's the only team I think could keep it close. I think Louisville could keep it close with their explosive offense. I don't know that any other now UNLV and Louisiana, no.
They would smash Louisiana.
It'd be a blowout.
They'd smash UNLV.
Yeah. Look, South Carolina's defense, the reality is South Carolina's defense is going to have to beat any of the other receiving votes, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, we've talked about their offense being suspect, but no, it is a shame that a team like Memphis and Tulane, Diesel, and I understand the Navy. I get Navy. Navy's been good. They just had the first loss. But Memphis and Tulane, how those two teams are ranked ahead of South Carolina, that's what I'm scratching my head about. And not even ranked ahead of them, receiving more votes than them. That's where I have issue.
JB asks a very interesting question, brings up a good point here on the stream. He says, Clemson has beaten no one. Pitt is a team that's been disrespected. They're 7-0 and still ranked only 19th in the country.
It's true.
I mean, you got a point there, JB. I disrespected Pitt last week on this show. And look, I mean, helmet scouting is a real thing. Yeah. Historical reputation is a real thing. It shouldn't be. If guys like Kelly Ford were out there, these would all be teams wearing gray helmets with just the numbers on the side, no logos, no nothing.
Yeah.
And you would compare the numbers and you would rank them accordingly. But this is the system we have.
It certainly is, and it'll be interesting to see, like, if South Carolina Diesel, we all know the magnitude of the game that lies ahead. I'm not speaking for you here, but I think we both believe if South Carolina does beat A&M and pull the upset, they're in the top 25. No questions asked.
Yeah.
So obviously that'll make this conversation a lot more fun. Speaking of fun, the Dodgers are having a lot of fun right now. 2-0 lead over the Yankees. One of the coolest sport moments in my entire life happened Friday night, and I'll talk about it next.
baseball dreams of one day having. You tell yourself, right, all right, bottom of the 10th, bases loaded, World Series, one-run game, Dodgers, Yankees. Reality for Freddie Freeman right here. Taylor the tying run, Edman the winning run. Cortez delivers. Freeman hits the ball to right field. She is gone! Gibby, meet Freddie. Game 1 of the World Series.
Is there anything better, Diesel, than a baseball call? I mean, like the football call we had in the first segment was fantastic, but the smack of the bat, Freddie walking it off. I was with a buddy of mine on Friday after the Burns game. We were watching the game in Spartanburg, and this happened, man, in the wee hours of the morning because that game started late, right? And to have a full crowd where I was watching it at the restaurant that I was at and seeing that, Diesel, was one of the coolest sports moments that I can remember. First ever walk-off grand slam in the history of the World Series. And no other game this series will be able to compare. Even though the Dodgers were up 2-0, that was just a magical, magical moment for a former Atlanta Brave.
Yeah, game 2 was boring by comparison. I mean, the Dodgers got out to a decent lead, a 4-1 lead early in the game. I think by the third inning is when the Dodgers got there. Yankees scored 1 to make it a respectable 4-2 game.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Cole, it fell short. It fell dramatically short of what we had in game 1. Now the series returns to New York City tonight. Can New York, with their own friendly confines, get it done? Because I can't think, is there any other event or happening in sports where you know what's happening without the play-by-play guy ever really saying anything? The way that you know when a home run comes off of a bat, that sound that it makes, you know.
God,
like,
so great.
You can hear, I guarantee you, it would take almost no time whatsoever if you could just listen to the isolated sound of the bat and the ball off the bat. You could tell, like, oh, that's a single. That's going to be a pop fly to the outfield. Sounds decent, but doesn't have that power behind it. And then a home run ball, like, you just know it. You know it when you hear it, and it's incredible. The sound of what a home run, especially a game-winning home run in Major League Baseball.
And guess what?
Like.
He did it again in game 2. It wasn't a walk-off grand slam, but Freddie Freeman making noise again.
Yesterday, hit that grand slam. Launches this ball right field. He's found the seats again.
It's so hard, man. Like, you want to appreciate these moments, but as a Brave fan, it's so hard. It's so hard seeing Freddie Freeman do this in the World Series, up 2-0, and now the Braves fans out there that are sitting here after not even making the postseason, barely scratching toward the end of the year. They made the wild, whatever. Yeah, I don't even count that. Diesel, it's so frustrating to watch this because you want to feel happy for Freddie Freeman because it was absolutely a terrific moment. But at the same time, Braves fans are pissed off because Freddie, left. He could be carrying this Braves team to another World Series. Instead, he's doing it in LA.
I mean, yeah, you happy for Freddie, but he left the Braves. Y'all got to stop pining over your ex. Braves fans, he left you. He left you. He didn't want you anymore. Stop pining over what could have been.
But they're not
and by the way, Cole, the first year that he was gone, Matt Olson had a better year.
Yeah.
He hit more home runs in Atlanta than Freddie hit in LA.
Well, guess what? Newsflash. As long as Freddie's a Dodger, that won't happen. Braves fans are still going to be – it's not going to happen.
Look, I mean, every time your ex posts a photo on Instagram where she looks good, doesn't mean you have to fall back in love with her all over again.
Well, I don't even like Freddie Freeman anymore. But you can't help but Thanks, Freddie. Now, here's what's funny. The next day after that walk-off happened, Diesel, on the Fox College football broadcast, David Ortiz was asking or talking to Mark Ingram, and the question that was asked was quite comical about the Dodgers somehow being tied back to Alabama. This is great.
Hey, Mark, I know my Red Sox didn't make it to the playoff this year. What's up with Alabama, man? They kind of suck this year. What's going on?
Damn, Poppy, you gonna pull up on me? Like they suck? Come on, Poppy. No, but they just have been undisciplined, Poppy. When you're an undisciplined team, you turn the football over. When you're an undisciplined team, you get penalized. And undisciplined results to losses. So my team, they gonna get right. They got Mizzou this week. They gonna get right. They got a bye week coming up. Then they'll have LSU. They gonna get right.
You
but
can't right that, Poppy.
He said they suck, Poppy. Gosh, damn.
I love it. I love the beef, man. Talking to Mark Ingram, Big Poppy's taking shots, even though the Red Sox aren't in the World Series. But I'm telling you, man, I've enjoyed it. The two games, I think the Yankees are due tonight, Diesel, and I know we'll talk about it a little later in the show, but the Yankees kind of have their backs. It's at home, so that helps, but they kind of have their backs against the wall in this one.
Texter says, bleep the Yankees, bleep the Dodgers, and bleep Freddie.
There you go.
Wow.
I agree.
Texter, man,
yes.
throwing around the 4-letter words. When we come back, Cole, I think now is the time to say it. There was always a couple of question marks left around Bryce Young, but he just sealed his fate, right?
Oh.
He's done. You have to pull the trigger and move on from Bryce Young. Just a pathetic performance from Bryce and the Carolina Panthers yesterday. We'll talk about it next. Cole, this year, CJ Stroud is completing 67% of his passes, up from 64% last year. His touchdowns are on track to match or exceed last year. Interceptions are up just a little bit, but the Texans are 6-2. So management, coaching staff, they'll take it. They'll take a couple INTs if you've got your team at 6-2. Bryce Young is over for the Carolina Panthers this year. Sucked for a couple of weeks, got benched. Andy Dalton came in. He started to suck for a couple of weeks. He gets hurt. Bryce Young comes back in. We were told last week by David Newton of ESPN that Bryce has made significant strides in practice. They put him in and he sucks again. I feel like as a Carolina Panthers fan, we're all getting trolled by the football gods. Like, this is just brutal to watch. Par for the course, garbage.
Yeah.
Like, you're not used to regular season suckage. You're a Cowboys fan. You're used to playoff suckage. The Carolina Panthers are in full regular season suckage mode, Cole. And I think Bryce Young just sealed his fate. The Carolina Panthers, they got to cut him. They got to trade him. They got to get something for him. Look, you had a whole season. You had a couple of games. You got benched for a while. You came back. Nothing has changed.
So
nothing has changed. There was a garbage time touchdown late in the game. Otherwise, this is identical to the performances that we were getting from Bryce Young all of last year. And for the first 2 weeks of the season, it is clear to me, Cole, that Bryce Young cannot do it at the NFL level.
Yeah.
He cannot be competent at the NFL level.
You know, the problem is Carolina has no plan in place. The problem is Bryce Young was pulled and Andy Dalton was thrown in, and Bryce Young's development regressed when he could have been getting quality reps. The problem is Bryce Young, Diesel, 100%. He's not a good quarterback. However, I will say Bryce Young's not the only problem. I agree with you. He sucks. He's not good right now. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, got sacked twice. The offensive line sucks. Terrible QBR, less than 50. Quarterback rating 76.9. He's not good. You can make no bones about it. He sucks. I mean, he does. However, Diesel, when you watch the games, and I know you do, the team sucks. There's not anybody. Name 3 players on this team that are impressive. I mean, that's the hard part. The entire team's trash.
Well, I could say the exact same thing, Cole, about the New England Patriots, and they just got a win with a rookie quarterback.
They did.
They were one of 2 1-6 football teams that got a win yesterday.
And they have, 2 wins on the season, though?
Still.
Panthers have one, so they're halfway there.
They changed. So Madcraft says you pulled the kid and destroyed his confidence. What confidence, Madcraft? What confidence did you see through week 2 of the 2024 season out of Bryce Young?
Yeah.
I saw Bryce Young this close from tears multiple times. Like he was like sort of welling up. He had little bitty raindrops in his eyes. There was no confidence in Bryce Young. And ultimately, it's like what I asked earlier in the show. What's your job as an NFL coach and GM? Your job is to win football games. Your job is not to do what protects the fragile little ego of the quarterback who can't win. Your job is to win because your job is also on the line. I mean, Dave Tepper probably going to give Dave Canales like a little bit more of a leash than he has previous coaches. I mean, good God, could you imagine the headlines if Tepper pulls the plug on Canales after 1 year? That would be 2 coaching staffs in a row that he's pulled the plug on.
Yeah.
With 1 season or less. I think Dave Tepper knows that his hands are tied. He can't go anywhere with regards to the head coach, but he can go somewhere with this quarterback position.
Well, the reality is there's so many problems. And again, like when you look at trying to get better, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, you just struggle to find a legitimate place to actually put your efforts toward, because I agree with JD. JD on the YouTube stream says there's nothing good about the Panthers. How can J.C. Horn complain about Peyton running up the score when it was 28-14? That's not running up the score, bro. Wesley on the Facebook stream says, does he suck or does he suck for the Panthers? It's proven every quarterback sucks in Carolina, but somehow is great on other teams. And he also says, I agree, he sucks. The reality is, yes, he does suck in Carolina, but do we know if he sucks on other teams? Nobody can answer that. Well, Diesel can't. I can't. We haven't seen him.
The Carolina Panthers replaced key members of their offensive line, and the offensive line is actually graded fairly well this year. They're giving up fewer sacks than they did last year, so they're graded better than they were. They made some minimal improvements at the wide receiver position. I'm talking numbers-wise. I think we all believe that Dante Johnson is a good wide receiver, and we all believe that Xavier Legette will be a good wide receiver, and it sucks that they lost Adam Thielen. So, like I said, it's always kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back with this team, Cole. But it's not like the Broncos, who are really good on defense, by the way. They got the 3rd best defense in the NFL. It's not like they just shut this Carolina Panthers team down to the point where they couldn't move the ball at all. They just held the Carolina Panthers to the season average that the Broncos defense is holding everybody to.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, those guys you just mentioned, Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, the 2 of them, if that's what you're putting around Bryce or Andy Dalton, regardless, if those are the 2 best options you have, and that's nothing disrespect to Xavier Legette, who's going to be good, but he's Diesel. He's what?
He's a rookie.
8 games in.
He's a rookie.
Deontay Johnson's not that great. The reality is Deontay Johnson on most other teams wouldn't be wide receiver 1. He's wide receiver 1 on your team because your wide receiver room sucks. Mm-hmm. So, like, again, it goes back to my point. Yeah, Bryce sucks. Yeah, Andy Dalton sucks. Nobody's any good on this team. And to Wesley's point, maybe that's why more and more we need to start evaluating other positions impacting the quarterback position, because he's right. Ultimately, when's the last time there's been a good quarterback in Carolina? It's been Cam.
Well, it's not. This isn't college football. There's no transfer portal. You can't just wholesale with whatever budget you feel like spending, go out and make all those moves
correct
all at once. Again, they made some moves at the offensive line position this past offseason,
and they've had injuries.
And they've had injuries, but they've improved over the offensive line performance that they had last year. So, everybody has their own philosophies on how you build a team. Some people say, go get the best quarterback you can possibly get and then build around him, which means players going to struggle for a couple of years. Some people say, build an offensive line and build weapons and then go get the quarterback. So if you've got a mediocre quarterback back there, but you've got a line that can protect him and you got receivers that can get free, you might actually have a decent chance to win a couple of games every year. There's no right or wrong answer. I mean, teams have done it successfully in multiple ways for years.
Cole. And wasn't Deontay Johnson out Sunday? I think he was out.
Yeah.
And here's the issue. Like, again, I want to go back to this. I'm not saying Bryce isn't bad. However, let's look at the box score. You're telling Bryce Young to go out there and beat Sean Payton with Jalen Coker, David Moore, Miles Sander, and a rookie Xavier Legette at receiver. That's your receivers. Like, nobody knows these guys. Jalen Coker and David Moore are your 2 leading receivers Sunday. I mean, that's pitiful. They don't have any talent at receiver in terms of game breakers, in terms of number 1 guys to go and make differences. And the Broncos, no, they're not a world beater team, Diesel, but they're 5-3. They're a good team, and they didn't get blown out. They lost by 2 touchdowns.
Well, one of those touchdowns was a garbage time touchdown.
That's true. What, late in the game, right? 4th quarter, right?
Yeah, 4th quarter. I think there was like a minute and a half to play in that game. But Cole, I get what you're saying. They don't have elite wide receivers. But what of the interception where Bryce threw it to literally nobody?
Yeah, I know.
Threw it to literally, there was not that's not on the receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, you could break down the play and say, here's what the receiver was supposed to do. But Bryce Young is not recognizing coverage. Bryce Young is not even close to being accurate. There's just nothing going right with this team. So I beg the question, Cole, how do you take up a roster spot with a guy that appears this broken? And to be fair to Bryce Young, are you gonna hold a guy like that hostage when you feel like you got nothing for him, right? Like you got no wide receivers to help him out. Why would you hold a guy who's 5'2", 125 pounds on your roster for 3, 4, 5 years when you have no belief that a guy of his body size can be competent in the NFL?
It's a great question. And I do ask the same question with guys like Trevor Lawrence. And like when you talk about quarterbacks not being the right fit, when you say Diesel, when you ask about cutting Bryce Young, it's so intriguing because, yeah, like you don't need the guy. Yeah, you could free up a roster spot. At the same time, though, does the upside of what possibly Bryce could fix in the future give you enough hope to keep him? Well, I guess that's your answer then. So what do you want to do? Trot Andy Dalton and I don't know what other quarterback you'd have on the roster, but you have to find somebody with upside, and you can't. I mean, Andy Dalton's a good backup, Diesel, but that's what he is. He's a backup, and he's 40-something.
Yeah, but Bryce Young is not even a good backup.
I know.
He's not even a good backup. Bryce Young should be on your friggin' scout team. Not starting, not backing up, scout team Bryce.
So I guess the question is, do you care about Bryce, the person, enough to allow him to go to another destination, Diesel, to maybe have a fresh start, to maybe be in a different system, to maybe be with a guy like a Sean Payton who's a quarterback guru, right?
Well, I mean, Dave Canales is supposed to be a quarterback guru, right? Sure. But hey, it's worked for multiple players. We talk about it all the time. You know, we're pulling out knives out of our backs when former Panthers go and have big games somewhere else. They hurt every single time watching former Panthers. And by the way, shout out to Bradley Bozeman, ex-Carolina Panther, who was the one who laid the smackdown on that Saints safety or something like that took down Justin Herbert and was twisting his leg. And then Bradley Bozeman comes out of nowhere. He comes from off screen to go hit that guy. It's like, damn, what happens? As soon as they leave Carolina, they suddenly remember, oh, yeah, I'm a football player. I need to actually go out and play football.
Diesel, I like this comment from Wesley on the Facebook stream. He says, crazy stat. In the last 5 Panther seasons, they've had 7 head coaches.
Yep.
5 different starting quarterbacks. Wonder why they suck. ... That's not true, is it? Is it, Wesley? Is that true? Because reading that off the comment, that doesn't sound right. 7 head coaches?
Though. It's right though.
7, 5 different starting quarterbacks. Wesley, there's no way that's true. They haven't had 7 head coaches.
Yeah,
I'll have to fact check that. I don't know. I mean, they had the guy at Baylor, Matt Rule. Right, the guy from Baylor, rather. They had Matt Rule. They had Frank Wright. That's 2. Now they've got Dave. Who'd they have before Matt Rule? It was Rivera. So Riverboat Ron. Maybe Wesley's being.
And they may be including the interim head coach. Blank on.
The one who was actually
Steve Wilkes.
Yeah, the one that was good. The one they should have hired instead of Frank Wright. That everybody wanted. Players loved him. And by the way, those last few games with Wilkes, they actually looked competent. They actually looked like a good team, but no, they didn't hire him, and he goes off, and I believe he's a DC now. But no, it's bad. Diesel, I'm trying to rebuttal your topic because I'm trying to play devil's advocate, but it's so hard because Bryce Young does stink. It's just the unknown that Wesley did bring up, the unknown of what he maybe could be in a right system. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, maybe he's just a bust and wouldn't fit in any system just because of his intangibles and what he doesn't have.
Look, we all thought that Sam Darnold was a bust. He left, and he's playing well in Minnesota. We thought Baker was a bust. He's moved on, and he's playing well in Tampa.
Playing well.
And the question is, can you let the fear of that happening again be the reason why you take up a roster spot at the most important position on the field with a guy who's 5'11", 165 pounds? I understand that he's smart. I understand that he did well on the Wonderlic test. But at the same time, CJ Stroud appeared to be dumb and not do well on the Wonderlic test. And that dude's 6'2".
And he's good.
And he's good.
And he's taller.
So Why take up that roster spot in the hope? See, that's where Carolina Panthers. Well, that's where that side of the argument is. It's the hope that Bryce Young wouldn't go somewhere else and improve. But this is the NFL. You can't think that way. You always have to be making moves to improve your own team, not keep another team from improving by getting rid of a bad football player.
Wesley comes back on the stream and says, since 2019, shortly after Tepper purchased the team, we've had Ron Rivera, Perry, what is that? Fuel? I don't remember him.
I don't remember him either.
Matt Rule, Steve Wilkes, Frank Reich, Chris Tabor, and now Dave Canales as coaches. Were Perry and Chris actually head coaches, though?
Chris was an interim.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've also started Kyle Allen, Will Greer, Cam Newton, Teddy Bridgewater, P.J. Walker, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Andy Dalton, Bryce Young, totaling a combined record of 24-59. So maybe it's Tepper's. Like, again, we're asking the same conversation with the Cowboys right now. It's the topic that everybody talks about, Diesel, that nobody really understands how to put a finger on because nobody knows where to begin. But the plethora of problems that the Panthers have, we know they're there, but the question is, how do you solve them? I don't know that Mr. Optimistic, Mr. Positive in your head coach is going to be positive enough for all these problems just to go away. I think you need somebody that's going to, and maybe Dan Morgan's this guy, maybe somebody that's just flipped the table upside down, much like's needed in Dallas. And I know that they have players on that roster in Carolina that are talented, but boy, are they far and few between right now.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem, and the light is still 2 years down the tunnel, right? When it comes to opening up some money in your cap space. So I think, Cole, we're in for another couple of years of dealing with this.
Joy!
Talking about the Carolina Panthers. I mean,
thanks.
Here's the real risk. Is you let Bryce go. You cut him, you trade him, whatever. You draft another top-rated quarterback, so you go get Quinn Ewers or you go get Carson Beck or you go get Shadur Sanders because, I mean, God, that's going to bring some attention to the Carolina Panthers, right? You'll sell some tickets because of that. And then the same problems still persist because now you've got to push back to the second, third, fourth rounds to go get some rookies in positions that you need key guys, and you still don't have any money. So now you're having to go get players on the cheap in free agency and rookies that are second, third, fourth rounders, and you're having to rely on them.
Texter says, unlike the Dodgers making a mockery of the salary cap, the NFL had the most fair competitive balance in the league. It's hard work to stay bad in the NFL. Well done, Panthers. That's funny. Also, I want to give a shout out to John Vineset, who tweeted the show, Diesel, and says, my current view, listening to the show, I tweeted him back and said, very jealous of your view. I would be careful, John, to have us cranked up too loud. Looks like John Vineset's doing what I love, sitting in the woods, looking over a nice field on this cloudy fall day, waiting for a deer to pop out. John, we appreciate you listening, hopefully quietly, right? But look, John Diesel, that's the ultimate Tolo. Turn on, leave on, even if you're deer hunting, right?
I hope you got your earbuds in.
Yeah, that's probably
so the deer
AirPods.
Can't hear you.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah,
AirPods.
you put them on transparent mode where you can still hear the scratches and the stomps and the blood and the breathing. What do you call it? A blow? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, they blow sometimes.
Okay,
sometimes depends. But John, appreciate you being a Tolo. That stands for turn on, leave on. That's what we ask you to do. That's what you are. Turn it on, leave it on, and we will talk Clemson football. The Tigers are back in action after their bye week, where them and the Gamecock fans had to get along for the first time in a long time because there was nothing to do locally on Saturday in terms of Gamecocks and Carolina football. Diesel, but David Hood, TigerNet.com, joined us on Monday. We'll get back in game shape. You and I are a little out of breath, no game shape this past week, and we got to get back in game shape with David Hood next. Time to talk a little Clemson football as the Tigers are back in action this weekend. We're joined every Monday at 4:20 by David Hood, senior writer, TigerNet.com. You can follow him on Twitter at @MDavidHood. David, as always, we appreciate you hopping on with us, but I want to pull the curtain back a little bit for those out there that are listening in the upstate today. What is it like for a sports writer like yourself who's been doing this for a very long time on a normal weekly basis when you have a game on Saturday compared to a week like you just experienced last week where you had no game to cover on Saturday? David, can you hear us? Oh, we lost David. How about that? We lost him.
All right. Well,
I love when you ask a question, man. It's like so funny.
At what point did we lose you, David? Oh man. Well, so we'll get David Hood back.
I'm asking the question, and he's probably not even there. And you and I believe he's there. Let me try him again.
All right. While you're getting David Hood
Diesel
back on the line. Oh man, I'll sing some of those country songs that I heard on Saturday. Yeah, I had a chance to go out to that concert for Carolina on Saturday, and it was absolutely insane how many people were there. Like 87,000 people, I believe, is what I heard was the total attendance number. 87,000 people, Cole, which doubles probably a lot of the Carolina Panthers attendance figures from the season.
Don't go there.
89,000.
That's a big number. David, you got us now, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
No, you're good, man. I don't know what you heard, but I wanted to ask you, for those out there listening, and I was kind of curious myself, but you've been writing a long time for TigerNet.com. What does it look like on a week-to-week basis, like your duties, what you do when you're leading up to a game versus a week like you had last week where you had no game to lead up to on Saturday?
Well, first of all, I just absolutely despise the open dates. I just despise them. Because you get into a routine, you set a budget for the week on Monday of, what you're going to do, what you've got to cover. And then the open date, the limited interview opportunities kind of blows that out of the water. As a Heisman voter, though, I do like it because I'm able to tune into way more games and take a look at the guys that I want to take a look at, across the country. It involves a lot more watching football. And then I was able to actually go out on Friday night because there was no noon game because I wasn't on the road and watch Clemson commit Marquez Henderson of BHP. Ooh. So a little bit different, but all in all, still a good week. And then I told myself that I was going to enjoy it because Clemson plays 5 games in the month of November. There is a possibility of an ACC championship. You have all of the award shows and award weeks that go along with, that week that follows, an ACC championship. And then, oh, by the way, with this new world that we live in, college football playoff starts like December 19th or 20th. So, add in basketball to that. It's going to get a little bit crazy.
Talking to David Hood of TigerNet.com. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. You mentioned there, David, that you're a Heisman voter. For Cade to play his way to New York City, which means he has to be a finalist, what would he have to do this weekend against Louisville? Not necessarily to ensure that he's in that top 5, but to really put himself in the mix, in the solid mix of guys who could go there. What kind of performance does he have to have against Louisville?
Well, I think he just has to keep on doing what he's been doing. He had 20 touchdowns. 3 interceptions on the year, a completion percentage around 66%. But, the Louisville game isn't going to make him or break him. For him, it really and truly is going to be about what happens in these 5 games, really 4. Not to discount the Citadel, but, you're not going to make a Heisman campaign on what happens against the Citadel. But he's got Virginia Tech on the road, Pitt on the road, Louisville and South Carolina at home. Those 4 games are really going to tell the tale for him.
David, a quick follow-up to that. As a Heisman voter and as somebody who covers Clemson, what is your charge? What is the Heisman Trust? What kind of standard do they put on you to maybe discourage or encourage you, either way, to vote for somebody who is near to what you cover on a daily basis?
Yeah, there is none. There is no charge in that way. It is kind of like, hey, do you cover college football on a weekly basis? Yes, I do. Do you cover it on a daily basis? Yes, I do. Do you feel like you watch enough games to be an informed Heisman voter? Yes, I do. So that's it. There is no charge to do near and dear, to put somebody in that I cover or don't cover. Nothing like that. It's pretty much free will.
So you think Tyler from Spartanburg could be a Heisman voter then, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen.
David, always appreciate you hopping on with us. Clemson this week, we know that the back half of the schedule is a few games where Clemson could be tested in ways they haven't been thus far. When you look at Louisville in particular, for those Clemson fans out there listening, in what ways do you feel like Louisville could challenge the Tigers?
Well, that offense can score points in bunches. You've got Tyler Shuck, who, I think he's 51, 52 years old, feels like he's been around for forever. He's an experienced quarterback. He knows how to play the game. They've been able to score. I mean, you look what they were doing against Miami, man. They were scoring in bunches against the Canes, too. Clemson's defense has been good. That first unit has been good. This could wind up being a little bit of a shootout if Clemson's defense doesn't play well. They can stress you there. And then, Louisville maybe has one of the better secondaries with guys like Quincy Riley, Holloway, guys that, Clemson hasn't seen so far. I think this secondary can kind of test them. I think this is going to be a game where Clemson, really kind of needs to come out and make it a Phil Maffa game. Just Phil Maffa get 24, 25 carries, control the line of scrimmage, and control it that way.
David, in the press conferences that I've seen, especially over the past 5 or 6 weeks or so, it feels like we're seeing a very at peace Dabo Swinney. Not too high, not too low. He seems like he feels really good about his football team, and he should. I mean, they're putting up 500 yards of offense on a weekly basis. But we also remember the fiery Dabo Swinney. He's a master motivator when he needs to be. So in what ways is Dabo Swinney potentially using their position in the AP top 25 in so many different ways? What's Dabo using to motivate this team to go out there and have a killer instinct week in and week out?
Well, yeah, for him, it really kind of comes down to playing the opponent in front of you. It's coach speak, but I know that's what he tells his team. You can't worry about the polls. Somebody sent me a message this morning, absolutely in a world of angst about Clemson falling in the AP poll. And I tell them, the AP poll doesn't matter. What matters is what comes out a week from tomorrow night, and then what comes out 4 weeks later. That's the polls that matter. The coaches really can't concern themselves with that. I think if, Dabo, is honest with his team, he says, people doubt us and we just got to go out and win in November. And that's what it takes. Now, is he going to fire up the Roy bus? Yeah, probably a little bit, because, I was listening to a national radio show earlier today, and, they made the remark that if Clemson and SMU and Miami end up all tied and Clemson doesn't make an ACC championship game, SMU beats Miami, that Clemson wouldn't make the playoffs, that an 11-1 Notre Dame team would. And, I think that there is a certain amount of disrespect that he could play there, that, there are people that still doubt them because, when you look at who Clemson has played, everybody's going to go, well, what's the best team they played? Georgia, they lost 34-3.
David, I want to go back to a follow-up that kind of relates to what you just said, but a follow-up on the Heisman conversation in relation to what you just said with Clemson getting disrespected, but also Cade Klubnik, let's say he continues to put up these numbers and his Heisman conversation really doesn't go anywhere. Would you attribute that and his lack of ability to make a run at the Heisman, would you attribute that to him being in the ACC and not having the respect that other quarterbacks maybe in the SEC currently have?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for other Heisman voters, but sure, I think that there's a part of that. You take a look at the big games this past weekend, and everybody was really dialed in on, what happened between LSU and Texas A&M. Look what Indiana's doing up in the Big Ten. Look what they were able to do against Washington. What were the big ACC games this weekend? Well, maybe Miami and a woeful Florida State team. But that's kind of it. Virginia Tech, they hold serve at home against an injured Georgia Tech team. Boston College can't hold on, last Friday night against Louisville. There just hasn't been that slate of big games that makes you want to take note of the ACC. But again, it kind of starts this weekend. Pitt travels to SMU. That's going to be a big game. Both those teams undefeated in the ACC. Clemson's going to travel to Virginia Tech next week. They've got Louisville this week. Then they travel to Pitt. So there's some big games coming up for these teams that will enable the ACC to kind of get back in that national conversation.
David Hood, TigerNet.com, joining us here on the Fan Upstate. You tweeted a few days ago, David, that you were watching some highlights for Tajay Watson. You said you were at a game this weekend watching that. What prospects do you like most for next year that you think might step in and have an immediate impact, given where Clemson is at individual position groups on the roster?
Yeah, and kind of taking a look at Clemson's recruiting class, the guy that I'm really wanting to see is probably Gideon Davidson, the running back. I think that Clemson has kind of, maybe lacked it at, true speed at that position. I think that Gideon kind of has that speed, but I'm really looking to see Henderson. Henderson has that speed. Where are they going to put him? Are they going to put him at corner? Or are they going to put him at slot? He told me the other night that he really wants to try running back. And we know Davidson's coming in. They're kind of loaded there. The kid, Braden Jacobs, the offensive lineman from down in Beaufort, Georgia. Want to see how he comes in and plays right away because, a lot of times offensive linemen are not polished when they get here. But he's about as polished as they come, and he's already got that size, 6'7", 310. He's got some guys in front of him. I want to see where he kind of fits in too. And then Logan Brooking, the tight end prospect, I'm really intrigued by him. Ari Watford is another guy that, is kind of a defensive lineman. You really want to take a look at him. But I don't know that there's any of those other than Henderson that I go, man, I don't know if they're going to play right away somewhere. Henderson just has that kind of speed that you go, man, I think he needs to play somewhere early.
David, were you as upset or just flabbergasted watching the end of the Duke SMU game Saturday as I was? I mean, look, I had the Duke Blue Devils in my upset pick for our upset picks challenge that we do on the station, but it just seemed like Malik Murphy and crew did not want to win that game Saturday.
No, that's what I tweeted out. I tweeted that SMU was trying and doing everything they could to give Duke that game, and Duke just didn't want to take it. And then, I'm a bit of a gambler, and I'm all about, hey, if you've got a chance to go for 2 to win it, your team's done really well, you take it. But that would have been one spot, if I'm Manny Diaz, where my team has fought back, we've gotten 6 turnovers. I'm just going to take the point right there and try and live another down. Because SMU kept making mistakes. It's not like SMU was playing perfect. And it was a little bit frustrating, but I think that Rhett Lashley, the SMU coach, said it best after the game. He said, we didn't deserve to win that game. They didn't play well enough. And they didn't. And they've got to put it together, this week with Pitt coming to town. But, yeah, that's just frustrating. And then, you're kind of flipping channels there between that and watching, what's going on down in College Station with Texas A&M and LSU. And it was a lot. It was fun for me, not frustrating. It was fun.
David, you've covered Clemson for years, and you're obviously much closer to this program than Cole and I are. And, after you've done it for quite a while, you pick things up, like little pieces of memorabilia, little things here or there. Is there anything that you've got from your years of covering Clemson that maybe isn't a valuable piece of memorabilia, just something really interesting that's in your collection that, you always look at, put a little smile on your face and say, that might be one of the coolest things that any Clemson fan might have?
Yeah, my lovely bride took a bunch of the confetti from the 2016 national championship win over Alabama. She gathered up a bunch of that confetti and she made Christmas ornaments out of that national championship confetti. And then the photographer's bib that they give you for being down on the sidelines during the game. I've got a photographer's bib, and that's kind of in my memorabilia, I guess. I don't get a lot of stuff, don't get a lot of souvenirs, not a lot of footballs, not a lot of helmets hanging around the house here. But those are two things that I really cherish.
David, great stuff as always, man. We sure do appreciate you hopping on with us, and cannot wait to see how Clemson handles Louisville on Saturday, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Absolutely. David Hood, TigerNet.com, always fantastic. And, Diesel, maybe, just maybe, I'm being hopeful here, maybe Louisville gives Clemson a game to where you and I and David have a little bit more riveting conversation to be had. It'd be nice.
Cole, I'll ask you the same question that I just asked David. In your years of covering football, covering high school games, covering college games, being sideline and being in the press box, like I said to David, we pick up little things here and there. Is there something that stands out to you that's in your collection that is just special? Again, it doesn't have to be valuable. It's just special.
So I've got one that I can tell you off the air that I can't say on the air. It's a great story, a fantastic story. I just cannot tell the story on the air because it's high school related, and there's about 5 people that know the story. So okay. I'll tell you that one off the air. But in terms of on the air, I like keeping those press passes. I like keeping the press passes and just my memory's so bad. I like being able to go back and say, I was at that game, right? I have them on my book bag, have them in our office. Having the press passes, I think, is just cool because it helps you remember what games you were at. And I also make little notes on the back of them too. But the confetti, that one's hard to beat, man. That's pretty cool.
Making Christmas ornaments out of them. I mean,
that's awesome.
They sell the clear Christmas balls that hang from the tree, right? And you can take the lids off of those things and you can stuff those things down in there. That's really cool.
That's neat.
That's a cool one. I hadn't thought of ever saving the confetti for that purpose.
And South Carolina Gamecock fans haven't either, by the way.
Ouch. Ouch, Cole. Look at you.
Sorry.
This is why people text in and call you a homer, because you take a parting shot.
You set it off. It's your fault.
When we come back, Cole, we'll get into our daily wires and whip around of what's happening in the sports world today. That's next. We'll go merry-go-round of the sports world after we talk to Dale, who's on the line, who only ever wants to call in and say positive things about his and Cole's Dallas Cowboys. Dale, what's on your mind today?
So I called the Rob Brown Show this morning, and I had to get this off my chest. But I wanted to start with the fantasy football. I needed 15 points yesterday out of Brandon Aubrey, the kicker, and San Francisco's defense. And guess what I got?
14.
15.9.
Oh.
Let's go.
Wow, good day for you.
Yes, I thank Dak in his 2 picks. I appreciate that very much. Sitting there with my wife, we're watching the game, and I scripted the first 2 drives. First down punt, and then the second drive, Dak was going to throw a pick. Sure enough, he threw a pick. You realize he's throwing more picks. I believe he's on pace for Jameis Winston's 30.
He's on pace for what?
Jameis Winston's 30 picks in the season.
Well, I mean, look, it's like I said earlier, Dale. Yeah, he sucks, but again, Brock Purdy had the same amount of rushing yards your entire team had. I mean, I don't know. What do you think we should do?
I think it's time to blow it all up. I mean, you're stuck with those contracts, but you got to start rebuilding. You got to blow it up.
Blow it up? All right.
How much longer does Zach Martin have?
Well, he's the best player on the team.
Yes, he is. And I'm sure he's getting sick and tired of blocking for, Zeke and Dalvin Cook, who ran for what? I think 35 yards combined. I mean, it's awful.
I know. You're right. Thanks for the call,
Thank you,
Dale. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Yeah, it's awful.
Well, okay, Cole, let's get to what we call our Daily Wires. This is the buzz happening around the sports world. The LA Dodgers now lead the World Series 2-0. They will play game number 3 tonight against the Yankees. Shohei Ohtani, if you hadn't seen this yet, injured his shoulder in game 2 of the World Series. Manager Dave Roberts said yesterday that Ohtani is, quote, in a great spot and will be playing on Monday. It's very interesting. Game 1 ended with a walk-off grand slam for Freddie Freeman. We had the audio for that earlier. Game 2, far less dramatic, with the Dodgers winning comfortably 4-2 after giving up 1 run in the top of the 9th.
Dodgers, Yankees tonight. Gut feeling, I think the Yankees get one tonight.
Yeah, I've got Yankees in 6, Cole. So for me to be right, they have to get this one. Yeah, this one's yeah. But hey, if they just win the series, I'm fine with it.
There you go.
Dwayne Wade got his statue outside of the Miami Heat arena, and it is horrible.
Not good?
It is horrible. If you haven't seen it yet, look it up. The Dwayne Wade statue, after it was unveiled, Dwayne, standing in front of it, said, "That's crazy. I can't believe it. Who is that guy?"
Is it that bad?
Yeah, it's that bad. Have you not seen it yet?
I'm looking now.
Oh, man. Fans are comparing it to the Cristiano Ronaldo statue that was unveiled in 2019.
Oh my God, he looks 90.
He looks more like Bo Jackson than it looks like Dwayne Wade.
Looks like the guy over there on the corner.
Yeah, who is the idiot who they keep hiring to sculpt all these awful statues?
That's bad.
Stop. You know the Cristiano Ronaldo one, right?
Yeah, I've seen that one.
The one where his face is like pinched in the middle. It looks really, really
and that
odd.
Looks nothing like Dwayne.
Looks nothing like Dwayne.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like bad enough. And I don't know if Dwayne's going to raise enough of a stink to say, hey, change it, put a new head on that thing.
Knock it down.
But that's awful.
God.
That is truly awful, Cole. Jim Harbaugh awarded a game ball to center Bradley Bozeman for defending Justin Herbert after Saints defensive tackle Nathaniel Shepard pulled Herbert down and twisted his leg and ankle. Bozeman said, quote, "It was probably one of the dirtier plays I've ever seen."
Yeah,
your thoughts on that?
No, it was inexcusable. Yeah. I mean, you can't. There's got to be punishment. There's got to be.
There's got to be something after the fact. I mean, they had offsetting unsportsmanlikes or unnecessary, whatever it was, offsetting penalties there. But Cole, there has to be something after that for Nathan Shepard. That was uncalled for. Only 2 Tolos hit on their upset picks this week. Gravy, and that's all we're going to call him, Gravy, who took Kennesaw State over Liberty for 26 points, and Ruby Downs from Ingles, who took Auburn to upset Kentucky for 1.5 points.
I'm so upset. I don't even want to talk about the upset pick challenge.
Has there been this much devastation? I don't think there's ever been a week like this, Cole. I mean, think about it. Think about it. The absurdity of Gravy getting 26 points for Kennesaw upsetting Liberty. He picks any other game, Cole. He doesn't get that one. And then Ruby Downs is the only Tolo who gets a pick right the entire week.
Bad.
That's nuts.
But credit to Ruby.
Yeah. It's firing season, Cole. College coaches and position coaches and coordinators are going down. UCF has fired defensive coordinator Ted Roof, who I famously talked about last week. He was really good at App State.
Yeah.
They didn't like him early, but he came on late and had a good defense down the stretch. He has been fired, and Rice has fired head coach Mike Bloomgren, who went 24-52 in his 7 seasons with the Owls. It's firing season. Everybody trying to get out there and hire who they can while they can before all the good ones get snatched up, Cole. Locally this weekend, Limestone lost to Lenore-Rhine 21-19. Lenore-Rhine is like 5 or 6 miles from my childhood home.
Not far at all.
I used to get on my bike and ride to LR's campus all the time.
It's cool.
Because they had these awesome like planters in the middle of their parking lots that had a ramp on either side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's supposed to be trees there.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any trees in there. So they were just ramps. And I've been
one time. Cool little campus.
I used to ride my bike off those ramps. Furman had a bye week this week. Wofford lost to ETSU 24-7. Anderson lost to Tusculum 30-28. North Greenville defeated number 24 Delta State 47-45 in 4
Let's
overtimes.
go. How about it?
I love those exciting football games. 4-star wide receiver CJ Wiley decommitted from Florida State Sunday afternoon, marking the latest blow to the Seminoles 2025 class. We said that this was going to happen, Cole, and look at it. It's happening. When you got a bad football team, the best players pick up their ball and they go elsewhere, and it makes it that much more difficult
Take your ball and
to
go
try
home.
to rebuild a football team. You can't rebuild with high school recruits when high school recruits literally won't come to you, and all you can do is rebuild via the portal. And Cole, 29 years ago today, the Braves captured a World Series title with a Game 6 win over Cleveland, their only title from that magical 1990s run of total dominance. All those pennants, just one World Series. Think about it, Cole. We talk about how sports calendars change. 29 years ago, late October was Game 6.
Yeah.
Now we're only on Game 3.
That's true.
So they pushed it back by a week or two.
It is time to overreact, Diesel. Overreaction Monday is here. We do that. You and I have overreactions, and any overreactions you Tolos have, we'll hear from you next. A lot happened over the weekend. College football, NFL, even high school football. Guess what? We do not limit what you, the Tolos, can overreact to. Whatever you want to overreact to, whether it's football or, hey, the Dodgers, Yankees, that happened this weekend. You could overreact there as well. However you want to overreact, you can do so. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Phone lines are also open. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Everyone loves to overreact. Diesel, it's time to overreact. And I will start with a gripe I have. I voiced my opinion earlier in the show. Malik Murphy of the Duke Blue Devils. I watched that game Saturday night. SMU turned the ball over 6 times. As you know, as I know, the Tolos who picked Duke to win, I think you said 11 Tolos picked Duke to beat SMU. 11 Tolos were sitting there watching Tiger Power. Rachel tweeted at me during the game. It was awful. There was a couple other Tolos who tweeted at me as well. Diesel, you received 6 turnovers and cannot win the game. The Duke Blue Devils should bench Malik Murphy immediately. Get rid of him. Give Grayson Loftus from Gaffney, right here in the upstate, local kid, give him a chance. He's QB2. He was at ACC Media Days, and he's better than Malik Murphy, in my opinion. Grayson Loftus could have won that game if you gave him 6 freaking turnovers. So my first overreaction, Diesel, get rid of Malik Murphy. That's an embarrassing loss on Saturday.
Yeah, look, Duke is winning football games by virtue of a good defense. Not by having some lights out quarterback in Malik Murphy. He's okay. He's been okay in a lot of games, but you're right. For God's sakes, if you're gifted the ball 6 times, 6 more possessions than you otherwise should have had, and you can't get the win, good God, there's something seriously wrong with the offense of the Duke Blue Devils. They've just been coasting along and kind of getting lucky playing off of a good defense, Cole. My first overreaction for this Monday, and I invite all of you Tolos who got something to say, call in 844-FAN phone. That's 844-326-3663. We'll get you on the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. Is don't wait, cut Bryce. He can't do this. Bryce Young cannot be an NFL quarterback, Cole. His QBR this year is 19.4.
Oh,
19 point. He has more interceptions than touchdowns this season. Bryce Young sucks. He's 5'10". Cole, he's listed at 204 on the where is it? Where's that 204 pounds? Do they measure him with his pads and his helmet on too? I mean, there ain't no way Bryce Young.
Full. He just ate.
Yeah,
give him a break.
No way Bryce Young is 204 pounds. That is unbelievable. Look, we were told that Bryce Young had made improvements in being benched, that it was the best thing that could happen for him, right? That taking some time off helped him gain some perspective. It helped him maybe regain some confidence. But it clearly didn't. He was awful. He was awful. And, one of those touchdowns he had yesterday was in garbage time. He's still overthrowing wide receivers. He's still missing badly. He's still throwing picks to the other team. Bryce Young will not ever be a serviceable quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. You got to cut him.
And you're saying just in the middle of the season or at the end of the season?
End of the season.
Okay, wait till the end of the season.
End of the season.
And get rid of him. Just absolutely throw him to the curb.
It wouldn't hurt my feelings if you did it middle of the season, right? Call up whoever the third string guy is.
That's true. You could do that. A couple of texts. John Dog says, all caps, never picking Duke again. And it was John Dog tweeting at me during the game, too. I mean, I'm with you. What a bunch of trash players. I'm serious, man. I know that's mean, but I'm so upset. Like, that was the most pitiful embarrassment of a football team I've ever seen. Ty and Taylor says, you're just saying that because you lost your upset pick with Duke. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, what else would I be saying that with? Justin L. says, I had CMU over Miami, Ohio, and left the house with them up 7-3, feeling good about my upset pick. Returned to a 46-7 loss. Beautiful, says Justin L. Dakota and Duncan, how does Clemson drop 2 spots when we didn't even play? I mean, I know they don't mean anything, but that's some BS, says Dakota in Duncan, what is your overreaction?
You dropped spots by virtue of the teams that were just below you having phenomenal performances.
Yeah, it didn't help.
A&M had a great performance against LSU with that win. BYU jumped you. BYU had a big win on the road against UCF. Notre Dame stayed where they were by blowing the doors off of Navy. So you didn't get downgraded so much as teams that were just below Clemson got upgraded.
I have a few more. Diesel, you have a few more as well. Let's see what the Tolos out there have to overreact about on the phone. JD, 844-326-3663. JD, what do you have to overreact about?
Gentlemen, thank you for taking my call. First of all, I need to overreact to the fact that we're trying to score points in this upset pick challenge, and there were no upsets this week. Like, what am I supposed to do? I can't make any upset pick points if y'all aren't upsetting people. All right? So y'all need to chill out. Some of these underdogs need to win, and then this one's going to go a little bit off the beaten path. And I don't mean to throw shade at Rob Brown, but if I hear one more promo about Rob Brown losing weight and having these flappy arms or this soggy bottom, like, how did you lose all this weight not being in the gym, bro? What were you doing? So I don't want to hear about you having flabby arms. I don't want to hear about you having a soggy bottom. What did you do to lose the weight? Get in the gym, tone your body, do what you got to do. That's what I'm overreacting about.
And JD,
y'all be blessed.
Before you leave, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to know why you're not, I love when people kind of push against one side or push against the grain when something bad happens. But when something good happens, why don't you give credit? I want to know why you're not overreacting to the absolute incredible coaching job J.J. Redick's done in the first 3 games for the L.A. Lakers after bashing J.J. Redick for getting the job.
Hey, well, yeah, congratulations. They started out, 3-0 now, the Lakers?
Yeah,
I guarantee
they look
you
good.
They'll be in the play-in tournament. Trust me, it's just the beginning. They're getting lucky. They're having some good karma for drafting Bronny and giving
Dalton
him a
Connect,
spotlight.
though. Dalton Connect. Are you kidding me? Are you watching him play?
Dude, yeah, he's
my God.
Yeah. Listen, okay, so yeah, here's an overreaction for you. Dalton Connect wins rookie MVP of the NBA.
He's balling out, man. He's balling out. JD, thanks for the call. 844-FAN phone. 844-326-3663. You know, I'm an NBA guy. I've watched all 3 Lakers games, and Dalton Connect from Tennessee. Oh, my word.
Yeah, that is by far the better pickup than Bronny, who's playing only half the season because he's going to be stuck down in the G League. Cole, here's an interesting question, and we can get into this later on in the show or another day if you want to. Prediction time. Will Bronny play more games in the G League or the NBA this year?
This year?
Yeah.
I'd say G League this year.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. G League.
Well, I'm glad they wasted a draft pick on him.
Well, the reality of it is everybody in that range wastes a draft pick. Everybody does. Nobody hits in that range. Madcraft says overreaction. Miami should have been ranked top 5 2 weeks ago. What? Let's look at this for a second. Miami should have been ranked top 5 2 weeks ago after beating who, Madcraft? Who was Miami beating 2 weeks ago where they should be ranked in the top 5? Over who? Over LSU? Over A&M? No. That's a good overreaction, though. I like it.
Cole, here's my next overreaction. Panthers fans, you need to lay off David Tepper. You got to lay off. We've had enough David Tepper slander.
Let me make sure we're
on the
recording
fan
this.
upstate after the $24.5 million that David Tepper made possible to be raised for Hurricane Helene relief right here in the Carolinas. Just a phenomenal event. And I say that some philanthropic work, the way David Tepper put in, and we'll get into it a little bit later on in the show, buys him at least a couple of weeks of no more David Tepper slander.
That's quite the overreaction. I mean, quite the Panther fans should cut David Tepper some slack. Now, look, I agree with you. What he did was absolutely phenomenal, right? Let's call a spade there. He donated everything, right? And made it all possible to have that for free. That way there was no overhead that had to be, no money that had to be spent. They didn't have to go in the red. It was all profit to be raised. And what was it? 24 million?
24.5 million.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
So you're right. Kudos to Dave Tepper. Let's say, a couple of weeks, we're going to give him a bye. I mean, give him.
How about 2.4 weeks?
Okay.
For 24 million buys you 2.4 weeks of not calling David Tepper the worst owner in the NFL.
Well, you know what? That's probably fair. Let's see. Text line. I have a couple more too. I'll get to also. If you want to call in your overreaction, you can do so. 844-FAN-PHONE. Let's see. TX Experience on the text line. I don't know if I've recognized that.
Oh, he's definitely texted in before.
Has he?
Oh yeah.
T Experience says trade straight up Anthony Richardson for Bryce Young. That's his over. How about that? Trade Anthony Richardson for Bryce Young. I don't know. Would Anthony Richardson, T Experience, would he make that big of a difference with what's around him in this Panthers football team? That's the question, right? Would he be that much better than Bryce Young? Maybe he would, but again, I don't know how much quarterback really matters right now when the team just stinks. Texter says, overreaction, had the incredible opportunity to attend the A&M LSU game in Kyle Stadium this weekend. Absolute unique atmosphere. Let me click on the text.
Were you that one LSU fan standing in a sea of A&M Aggies?
Oh, man.
Swaying side to side. We've all seen that video.
And loudest place I've ever been to, but don't touch me when you want to sway together during your Aggie yell calls. Get your sweaty ass arms off of me, says Tyan Taylors. So Tyan Taylors was at the LSU A&M game. That's pretty cool, man. That's a pretty cool experience. I would love to. You should call in and give us a better. I mean, that game was
recap.
Yeah, it was at A&M. That's right. It was at A&M. By the way, the all black A&M jerseys are awesome. Oh my God!
I didn't like them at all.
I love them.
I didn't like them at all. You know, if I'm a random college football fan or just a fan that has a little knowledge of college football, and I just tune in and like I'm just flipping around on the channels the old school way, and I'm looking at, I don't have a clue who that is.
I just love it.
I don't have a clue. Like, I don't have a clue who that is. They're not good. You know, some schools just should not go all black with their uniforms. It just doesn't look right.
Billy D on the text line says Dave Tepper should be nominated for sainthood. That's a good one. Keith and TR, still not an overreaction. Dow Loggins has got to go. Well, he didn't do anything.
After a bye week? Wow, Texter.
That's when you know you hate somebody, right?
Yeah.
Texter says Miami's extremely overrated. Their defense is awful and would lose to every top team in the top 10, says Texter from the 903. Diesel, I will tell you, after watching A&M LSU, one of my overreactions is Texas A&M's elite. Texas A&M with Mike Elko, those guys looked and you know how high I've been on LSU this season. They curb stomped them in the second half. A&M looked elite. That's one of my overreactions. Also, Sam Pittman's safe. Sam Pittman is safe. Overreaction Monday. I mean, you scored. And again, I know the opponent absolutely stunk, Diesel. I know Mississippi State's not good. But guess what? Down the stretch when it's mattered, Arkansas is 5-3. 5-3. My overreaction is he's safe, man.
Yeah, with that, I mean, if you think you have a real shot at a better candidate, pull the trigger and move on. Right? Pull the trigger and move on. It's like there's always those coaches who coach their best seasons right before they're about to get fired.
That's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, do you risk and I don't know the terms of Sam Pittman's contract. If it's if he's done this year, I don't think you extend him. But I also don't think that that you necessarily say, all right, he has to be fired this year no matter what. My third and final overreaction for this Monday, Cole, is that Eli Drinkwitz's seat just got a little bit warm for the first time. It's not hot. It's not hot. Yeah. I'm not saying that Eli Drinkwitz is at risk of being fired, Cole, but after multiple terrible performances getting blanked by Alabama, you've got all that talent, all those pieces coming back, so much, so much, junior and senior talent across the quarterback position, wide receiver room. It's pathetic. It's pathetic what Missouri's 2024 season has turned into. This was expected, Cole, to be a top 10 team all season long, and they're on the verge of getting knocked out of the top 25.
Yeah.
And for a good reason. They shouldn't be in the top 25 after that ugly performance that they just had, Cole. But what a disappointment this season has been. Eli Drinkwitz, I don't know if he's the named OC on that coaching staff, but if he's not, it's time to make a move and get somebody new at least, because whatever you're doing ain't working.
Let's see. A couple of texts to get caught up on. Texter from the 515 says, "Oh, Cole, how about them boys? Cowboys suck. Go Eagles." I appreciate that. Texter says, one other thing, Cole, is it JJ or is it Anthony Davis carrying the Lakers? Oh, my gosh. Of course, don't give JJ Redick any credit at all. Tolo Steve, text in 71307. I think Ryan Day is trying to play himself out of a head coaching job. How do you have 2 weeks to prepare for Nebraska and almost lose the game with all the talent we have on that roster? Tolo Steve not happy about the close call, the close game, Diesel, because it was a lot closer than we expected it to be. So I'm with you, Tolo Steve. Not the best performance by Ohio State. My last one. I believe it's time to say that, number one, I agree with what you said a few weeks back. I think Travis Hunter is the Heisman Trophy winner, or should be, rather. I think he's the best player in the country right now. He's especially the most impactful player. So I'm ready to hop in the boat with you on that one. He's elite. Also, my overreaction Monday, after what I watched with Colorado Saturday, Diesel, I think it's time. I think it's time to go ahead. If you're a program that's in the dumps and you're a big-time program, I think it's time to go ahead and hire Prime. And I know Florida State, Diesel, was always a team that was talked about, that, because of the connections and ties. But I'll tell you what should happen. If Florida really wants to give Florida State the middle finger, get rid of that clown Billy Napier and go hire Deion freaking Sanders. What a shakeup that would be. Can you imagine Deion Sanders at Florida getting that train rolling again?
Yeah, that would be really interesting. And you're going to have somebody with a lot of personality and a lot of desire to push back on the inevitable negativity that comes from the fan base when you're the head coach at Florida, right? You've got to have somebody who not only can take it, but can dish it and push back and tell those Florida boosters when they're getting real twitchy and getting real weird, you got to tell them to shove it.
I mean, just imagine, man, like that program rolling and the way they beat Cincinnati, who's a good team. Cincinnati 5-3. They beat them 34-23. Colorado's now 6-2, 4-1 in the Big 12. Diesel. Like, imagine Florida State on the decline with Mike Norvell. And right now, we talk about it all the time, how important timing is, right? How important timing is with hires. Well, guess what? Florida State could miss out on their guy because of timing. Yeah. And Florida could say, hey, screw you. We're going to go get them. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, Cole, what year do we know Shadur Sanders is a junior, or excuse me, Travis Hunter is a junior. Shadur Sanders is a senior.
Okay.
And I assume, it being 2024, but you never frickin' know anymore, I assume that there's no COVID eligibility of another year. There was no red shirt at any point. If anybody can fill me in on that, please let me know. But just pretend for a moment that Deion Sanders could take the head coaching job at a big-time power school, Florida, Florida State, wherever it is, and keep Travis Hunter from going to the NFL.
God.
I don't think it's going to happen. But just pretend for a moment that Deion could bring those guys with him again somewhere new and automatically influx a whole bunch of talent into whatever school. But if Shadur goes, I think Travis is gone too. They're a package deal. They're going off to the NFL together.
And Diesel, if Florida State were to pull the trigger, which it'd be costly, here's why. Currently, Mike Norvell has a $65 million buyout or 85% of his base salary. which is astro-freaking-nomical. That's not going to happen. They're not buying out Mike Norvell, regardless of how bad this season ends. He'll be back next year, and I'm sure the buyout will drop to $58 million or something like that. But still, I mean, you remember, and I know we got to run. You remember when Miami was Miami with those guys, and Florida was Florida with Urban Meyer. I mean, imagine what Dion could be wearing that orange and blue.
When we come back, Cole, I want to recap the Saturday night that I had, my experience at just a phenomenal event being held at Bank of America Stadium. A ton of money was raised. I want to recap that for you next, and maybe give you Tolos, which is almost all of you, who got your pick wrong in the Upset Picks Challenge, a little speech. A little pick-me-up for the terrible week that was. That's next. Cole, Saturday evening, 82,000 people poured into Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte.
For a Panthers game.
No.
Oh.
No. What's the capacity of Bank of America? 77,000, I think.
Sounds right.
When you sell the floor also, when you sell field level, you can add another 5,000 people, I guess. Fantastic event that was put on there. Concert for Carolina. Phenomenal event, hearing from Luke Combs, hearing from Eric Church and all the other people who were involved in putting this thing together. But so much credit is owed to Luke and to Eric, both of whom are from North Carolina. Luke is from Charlotte, but moved to Asheville when he was like 8 years old and spent his entire life from 8 years old on to the point where he finally moved to Asheville. He said, living right there in Asheville in Boone when he went to college. Eric Church, the same, who went to App State. You know, to have two massive stars like that, able to pull together an event like this with a laundry list of additional massive stars.
Yeah.
And to be able to pull an event like this together in less than 30 days, Cole, is one of the most heartwarming things that I think I've ever heard anybody be able to put together. And the fact that they were able to raise $24.5 million to send to the mountains of North Carolina for Hurricane Helene aid and relief, it was just, it was moving. There were a handful of times, Cole, that I was standing there way up at the tippy top of Bank of America Stadium, choking up a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard not to when you hear the stories of what people have gone through, in addition to what everybody's doing to help out, Cole. It's great to hear. And country music is not my favorite thing in the world. I genuinely don't care much about country music. But I mean, we saw some incredible talent on stage, and I was blown away. I really was. And what kind of an event you're able to accomplish really with minimal stage setup. It was a big stage, big square stage in the middle, right there on the 50-yard line, Cole, that had a rotating disc in the middle. So they were able to spin the artists around through the entirety of the show, and everyone got a good view no matter where you were.
It sounds awesome. I saw some videos online on social media. It looked like a great time. And, I guess the only thing I would say is it just goes to show these are what we can do if people who are in power with money actually, want to do good, how quickly we can do so.
Yeah. And, so often, with everything, especially when government's involved or when large events like this take place, Cole, normally there is a tremendous amount of bureaucratic red tape that has to be pushed through to make something like this happen. But when you've got the sheer will of the people that are required to make something like this happen involved, you can really make something gigantic, go off without a hitch. Not a single problem outside of the weather, which, there was a drizzle of rain starting around 5 o'clock, I think, 6 o'clock, that pushed the start of the concert back to 7. Outside of that, Cole, the event went off without a hitch.
And it was the first rain we've had since the hurricane.
Yeah.
I mean, I
was thinking to myself, like, the irony of a hurricane relief benefit concert being pushed back.
That rained in 35 days.
Exactly.
And it rained.
Exactly. People were there in a fantastic mood. I didn't, normally when you have a big event like that, people get pissed off for whatever reason, right? Like the little things of having to stand in a big long line to get through makes people angry. The having to stand for long beer waits makes people angry. But everybody was in a fantastic mood. The way they were able to really creatively weave in the huge list of stars who were there. It started out with Eric Church coming out and doing a solo rendition of Hallelujah. He brought out Billy Strings, a bluegrass artist who blew me away at how talented they were. Believe it or not, Cole, me as a heavy metal dude, I love bluegrass.
Yeah, it's great music.
You have a line of 5 or 6 musicians who were all up there absolutely shredding.
Yeah.
Like the guitar player was shredding, the fiddle player was shredding, the banjo player, all of them, the mandolin player, great thing. Eric Church came back out for a set. They were able to weave Sheryl Crow into the set by doing the song Picture, the Sheryl Crow and Kid Rock song. Yeah. She came out, she stayed out solo for a little while, did a couple of her solo songs. Every Day is a Winding Road. I forget the other song off the top of my head. And then they brought out Keith Urban for a couple of tracks. His wife, Nicole Kidman, was there. They brought out, I don't know if you saw this, Cole. They brought out Randy Travis.
I saw that.
Randy was there.
I did see that.
Unfortunately, he couldn't speak. Yeah. He was there with his wife. They rolled him out onto the stage in his wheelchair, and they stood him up. And his wife, did all the speaking and put the mic in front of his face a couple of times to get a, of approval kind of thing. But it was heartwarming to see that. I thought Marty Smith from ESPN was great as an MC throughout the night. There was somebody else who, unfortunately, I don't know who he was, but I'm sure he's a big star if he was out there doing an MC gig. And then, of course, Cole, to me, the highlight was being able to see James Taylor. I've never seen great. James Taylor live before. We all know Carolina in my mind. We all know how incredible of a singer-songwriter he is. But to have James Taylor come out, who's synonymous with North Carolina and that great song, it was fantastic. And Luke Combs, of course, end of the night, closed the show with like a 10-song set. That's where the energy finally came on, Cole.
Yeah. Oh, Luke brings it. I mean, Luke Combs is the best, man. He's
great.
He's so good. He's a great performer, like just performing. Yeah. You talking about energy, man. I love
and it. A better person.
I wish I was there. I wish I was there.
Yeah, I mean, we were way up in the rafters, but I didn't feel like we had a bad seat.
Yeah.
I thought we were in a really, really good spot. Fantastic show. And as much as, like we talked about in the beginning of this hour, as much as we talk about how bad of an NFL owner Dave Tepper is and the decisions that he's made, the fact that David Tepper donated the use of the facility that evening, which anybody ever wants to rent a venue like that, it's going to cost them a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah.
They donated the tax bill. They donated all of the beer that was sold in the venue and then donated the proceeds from that beer. So they kind of lost twice in that way, if you think about it.
Three times Sunday to the Broncos.
That's true. They donated all of the merch sales. They donated so much money, all of the money from people watching on the stream over the internet. And of course, taking donations during that. So it really is, such a selfless thing that David Tepper and his family did. And I'm sure they probably threw in some extra cash in there as well.
Hopefully so.
It was great to hear that Dolly Parton gave $1 million to this. I posted a tweet on Saturday night during the show about what Luke Combs had said about all the proceeds from the parking and the beer sales and all that stuff going out there. And you got people saying, well, how come this billionaire isn't doing more? How come Jeff Bezos isn't doing it? Jeff Bezos donated $2 million to Dolly Parton so that she could then split it among her charities. And she gave $1 million of it to this relief concert. Yeah, so awesome. just a lot of great people doing a great thing. And sure. Those of you who didn't get to attend the show, you missed out on a great event. Those of you who watched it online, I hope you had a good time watching it.
I wish I was there. I really do.
Yeah. So there you go. I just wanted to recap that event and tell people how it went because I thought it was absolutely a beautiful, beautiful evening. But Cole, we need to get to our upset picks challenge, get to you Tolos who all failed this week. All of you, except for two, failed to make an upset pick that stuck this weekend. How about it? Ruby Downs, who from Ingles, who has only been in this challenge twice.
Yeah. 2
weeks ever, Cole. Ruby Downs got her pick right. She's on the board.
And I'm not going to give her any credit. I mean, I love Ruby, but my God. I mean, she just picked randomly. Well, I'm not giving her any credit.
Thing is, Cole, you and I are we can be haters all we want to of Ruby and her picks, but she's coming for us. Okay. Ruby.
Well, don't take much. Doesn't take much.
Ruby sits herself right now in 100th place with 1.5 points. We have so many Tolos on the board. The picks are up. The standings are up on the Twitter at the Fan Upstate. Go look at it. You don't need a Twitter account to go on the Fan Upstate's Twitter page and look at the standings. But just a quick recap. Only Ruby Downs and Gravy got their picks right this week. Ruby got 1.5 points. Gravy got 26 points. So the standings remain largely unchanged from last week. I will quickly go through the top 20 for you because, again, we can't sit and read over 100 names. Twisted Whisker in first place with 54.5 points. Noel in second place with 49.5 points. John Dog has 46 points. He's in third place. Joe D in fourth place. He's tied with Reed Atkins with 42.5. Amazon Guy in sixth place with 39.5 points. Seventh place, Buckeye Brian, 36.5. Justin L has 34.5 points. He's in eighth place. Josh Pate has 34 points. Roger Carper has 33. He's in 10th place. 11th place, Greenville Gamecocks, 32.5, as does Billy Horn. Reese Davis from College Game Day has 30.5 points. He's in 13th. Scotty Mack has 29 points. He's in 14th place. In 15th, you got T-Ray with 28.5. 16th, Clemson Oculus with 28. Coach AJ has 27 points. He's in 17th place, as does Mike Main and Mason Bruce, with a three-way tie there for 17th. And 20th place, you got Notre Dame Nate and Kevin Buggs with 26.5 points. Tolos, if you would like to know where you are in the standings, just text in 71307. Start your text with keyword fan, and we will get out your positioning in the Picks Challenge. Again, you can also find it at the Fan Upstate on Twitter.
All right, coming up next, we get into the top 25 AP poll that came out this morning. Our reaction as well as your thoughts, Tolos. You can react 71307. We'll give you our thoughts as well next. What are your thoughts, Tolos, on the AP Top 25 that came out earlier today? I want to hear from you, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. What you think is right, what you think may be wrong. Diesel and I will also give you our reaction as well. Clemson, as we've talked about during the show, did drop 2 spots. We'll get to them. But Missouri, who Diesel had a problem with earlier in the show, being at 25, starts us off as the 25th best team in the country, who dropped 4 spots right behind Illinois, another team who dropped 4 spots. So if you haven't seen the poll yet, Missouri 25, Illinois 24, Colorado, no movement despite beating a good team over the weekend. Washington State 22, Army 21, SMU 20. They moved up 2 spots. Ole Miss at 19, Pitt at 18, Kansas State at 17, LSU still in the top 25, dropping 8 spots to number 16, Boise State 15, Bama 14, Indiana 13, Iowa State 11, Clemson also 11. 2 teams tied for 11 as Clemson dropped 2 spots. And then the top 10, A&M, BYU, Notre Dame, Tennessee at 7, Texas at 6, Miami, Madcrafts, Hurricanes that are overrated without a defense, starting us off Diesel in the top 5, Miami 5, Ohio State 4, Penn State 3, the Georgia Bulldogs 2, and the number 1 team in all of the land, the Oregon Ducks. That is your top 25. Diesel, your reaction? I know you thought South Carolina probably should have got more votes, and maybe me and you both have issue with Missouri.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with a ton of this. I mean, it's late in the season. We got a lot more data points on some of these. The head scratcher to me is LSU falling 8 spots after losing. I mean, what did they lose by? 15 points? That's not a blowout loss on the road in one of the toughest environments in college football when they're rocking and rolling. That one's a big old head scratcher to me. I mean, you know, look, this poll right now is essentially a most deserving poll. It's not a who would beat who poll, and we can argue that till we're blue in the face, but LSU would obviously torch Boise State. LSU would probably torch Iowa State.
Yeah.
And Indiana as well. When you really start putting big SEC bodies on Big Ten teams like that, especially when they're down without a quarterback. I know that the Indiana quarterback is going to return this week. At least that's the report that we got last week. But Cole, it's a head scratcher to me that LSU is where they are. It's a head scratcher to me that a 7-0 Pitt, regardless of the fact that they've had a very, very weak schedule, that they're all the way down at number 18. In my mind, Pitt should probably be up a little higher, like closer to 15. LSU should probably be a little closer to more like 12. Those are a little wonky to me how we got there. And the fact that SMU had the horrible performance that they had, 28-27, 6 turnovers, and they still rose in the polls. That just doesn't sit right with me.
Texter from the 977 says, I love Clemson dropping 2 spots for no reason, cause F them, says the texter. Well, tell us how you really feel. CJ from Greer says, did bye week actually beat Clemson? Tolo Phil also chimed in. He says he officially quit the upset picks challenge.
No,
don't do
Phil.
that, Phil. Come on. Listen, if I'm still in it, you can still be in it. But
that's the thing about sports. 1 week you're saying, I love this. This is the best thing that's in my life right now. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, this sucks. I don't want to be involved with it anymore. And guess what? You're going to tune in and watch it anyway.
It's life of the Cowboys fan. That is what we do. Clemson dropping 2 spots is interesting, though. Had a lot to do. I think, David Hood touched on it earlier in the show, Diesel. And if you missed the interview with David Hood, we'll have that for you coming up at 6 o'clock. But I think a lot of the Clemson loss or the Clemson droppage had more to do with A&M beating LSU the way they did than Clemson being the victim, Diesel, of being on a bye, because you can't really control anything when you're on a bye week. You're kind of sitting idle, so I understand. But A&M putting it on LSU the way they did, moving up 4 spots, I think that's ultimately what hurt Clemson. But, again, you go beat Louisville, and maybe you're right back in the top 10, just depending on what these teams do. It is interesting, though, because you're now 11. You're not top 10. what teams, if you're a Clemson fan looking at the top 10, would have to fall or regress in the mind of the committee. You have 8-0 BYU at 9, A&M now at 10. What teams would have to fall or not have a good weekend, Diesel, for Clemson to jump them? And that's a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, I mean, BYU could easily drop and fall below Clemson.
See who they have this week.
Notre Dame, that's tough. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of problem with the top 25 overall. Again, LSU being where they are is a head scratcher to me. Pitt being where they are is a head scratcher. And let's be real, a 6-2 Colorado with a good win over Cincinnati, not going anywhere.
Yeah,
is a little bit of a head scratcher as well.
BYU has Utah, so if Clemson were to move up, they would have to, or they would pray for a Utah team to beat BYU. Or is that next weekend? Is BYU off? It might be. It might be next weekend.
Yeah, Cole. While you're looking that up, Clemson is still hamstrung by what happened against Oklahoma or against Georgia to start the season. 34-3 is still hanging over your head. The AP voters are wary of the fact. I mean, if you had kept it close, let's just say that game ended 34-24 or 34-27, something like that, relatively close, not a bad loss. Clemson is sitting inside the top 25 or top 5, and the pundits are looking at these 500-yard outbursts of offense saying, oh my God, this Clemson team looks virtually unbeatable.
Yeah.
You would not be falling. You would not be dropping if you would put together even a serviceable performance against Georgia.
Well, I'll tell you what I find very fascinating as we talk about this. Diesel, the AP poll right now, it's the poll that we're using, right? It's all we have. I would like to know if the ranking started today, how they would compare to the AP. And if I'm not mistaken, Diesel, the rankings start 1 week from tomorrow. So November the 5th is when the College Football Playoff Committee will actually give us a look at where things stand. And then obviously, after the season's over in December, the first week of December is when you'll get the final ones. But I believe we're only a week away. Yeah, it is. I just looked it up. 1 week away from tomorrow, we'll actually get the first college football playoff rankings.
And Cole, to put a bow on this thing, this is really fun. If the standings right now seeded the 12-team playoff, LSU would be out. Iowa State would be out. Notre Dame and Texas A&M would be in, and BYU would move into a 4 seed. A 4 seed by virtue of winning the Mountain West.
Wouldn't that be wild?
That would be absolutely fascinating. Cole, when we come back, let's hear from David Hood of TigerNet. We'll replay the interview that we had with him earlier in the show. We had some fantastic questions for him about the future of Clemson football and the athletes that they're bringing in the 2025 class, along with Cade Klubnik and his potential Heisman hopes. That's next on the Fan Upstate.
David, as always, we appreciate you hopping on with us, but I want to pull the curtain back a little bit for those out there that are listening in the upstate today. What is it like for a sports writer like yourself who's been doing this for a very long time on a normal weekly basis when you have a game on Saturday compared to a week like you just experienced last week where you had no game to cover on Saturday? David, can you hear us? Oh, we lost David. How about that? We lost him.
All right. Well,
I love when you ask a question, man. It's like so funny.
At what point did we lose you, David? Oh man. Well, so we'll get David Hood back.
I'm asking the question, and he's probably not even there, and you and I believe he's there. Let me try him again.
All right. While you're getting David Hood back on the line. Oh man, I'll sing some of those country songs that I heard on Saturday. Yeah, I had a chance to go out to that concert for Carolina on Saturday, and it was absolutely insane how many people were there. Like 87,000 people, I believe, is what I heard was the total attendance number. 87,000 people, Cole, which doubles probably a lot of the Carolina Panthers attendance figures from the season.
Don't go there.
89,000.
That's a big number. David, you got us now, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
No, you're good, man. I don't know what you heard, but I wanted to ask you for those out there listening, and I was kind of curious myself, but you've been writing a long time for TigerNet.com. What does it look like on a week-to-week basis, like your duties, what you do when you're leading up to a game versus a week like you had last week where you had no game to lead up to on Saturday?
Well, first of all, I just absolutely despise the open dates. I just despise them. Because you get into a routine. You set a budget for the week on Monday of what you're going to do, what you've got to cover, and then the open date, the limited interview opportunities, kind of blows that out of the water. As a Heisman voter, though, I do like it because I'm able to tune into way more games and take a look at the guys that I want to take a look at, across the country. It involves a lot more watching football. And then I was able to actually go out on Friday night because there was no noon game because I wasn't on the road and watch Clemson commit Marquez Henderson of BHP. Ooh. So a little bit different, but all in all, still a good week. And then I told myself that I was going to enjoy it because Clemson plays 5 games in the month of November. There is a possibility of an ACC championship. You have all of the award shows and award weeks that go along with, that week that follows, an ACC championship. And then, oh, by the way, with this new world that we live in, college football playoff starts like December 19th or 20th. So, add in basketball to that, it's going to get a little bit crazy.
Talking to David Hood of TigerNet.com. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. You mentioned there, David, you're a Heisman voter. For Cade to play his way to New York City, which means he has to be a finalist, what would he have to do this weekend against Louisville? Not necessarily to ensure that he's in that top 5, but to really put himself in the mix, in the solid mix of guys who could go there. What kind of performance does he have to have against Louisville?
Well, I think he just has to keep on doing what he's been doing. He had 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the year, a completion percentage around 66%. But, the Louisville game isn't going to make him or break him. For him, it really and truly is going to be about what happens in these 5 games, really 4. Not to discount the Citadel, but, you're not going to make a Heisman campaign on what happens against the Citadel. But he's got Virginia Tech on the road, Pitt on the road, Louisville and South Carolina at home. Those 4 games are really going to tell the tale for him.
David, a quick follow-up to that. As a Heisman voter and as somebody who covers Clemson, what is your charge? What is the Heisman Trust? What kind of standard do they put on you to maybe discourage or encourage you, either way, to vote for somebody who is near to what you cover on a daily basis?
Yeah, there is none. There is no charge in that way. It is kind of like, hey, do you cover college football on a weekly basis? Yes, I do. Do you cover it on a daily basis? Yes, I do. Do you feel like you watch enough games to be an informed Heisman voter? Yes, I do. So that's it. There is no charge to do near and dear, to put somebody in that I cover or don't cover. Nothing like that. It's pretty much free will.
So you think Tyler from Spartanburg could be a Heisman voter then, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen.
David, always appreciate you hopping on with us. Clemson this week, we know that the back half of the schedule's a few games where Clemson could be tested in ways they haven't been thus far. When you look at Louisville in particular, for those Clemson fans out there listening, in what ways do you feel like Louisville could challenge the Tigers?
Well, that offense can score points in bunches. You've got Tyler Shuck, who, I think he's 51, 52 years old, feels like he's been around for forever. He's an experienced quarterback. He knows how to play the game. They've been able to score. I mean, you look what they were doing against Miami, man. They were scoring in bunches against the Canes, too. Clemson's defense has been good. That first unit has been good. This could wind up being a little bit of a shootout if Clemson's defense doesn't play well. They can stress you there. And then, Louisville maybe has one of the better secondaries with guys like Quincy Riley, Holloway, guys that, Clemson hasn't seen so far. I think this secondary can kind of test them. I think this is going to be a game where Clemson, really kind of needs to come out and make it a Phil Maffa game. Just Phil Maffa get 24, 25 carries, control the line of scrimmage, and control it that way.
David, in the press conferences that I've seen, especially over the past 5 or 6 weeks or so, it feels like we're seeing a very at-peace Dabo Swinney. Not too high, not too low. He seems like he feels really good about his football team, and he should. I mean, they're putting up 500 yards of offense on a weekly basis. But we also remember the fiery Dabo Swinney. He's a master motivator when he needs to be. So in what ways is Dabo Swinney potentially using – their position in the AP top 25 in so many different ways? What's Dabo using to motivate this team to go out there and have a killer instinct week in and week out?
Well, yeah, for him, it really kind of comes down to playing the opponent in front of you. It's coach speak, but I know that's what he tells his team. You can't worry about the polls. Somebody sent me a message this morning, absolutely in a world of angst about Clemson falling in the AP poll. And I tell them, the AP poll doesn't matter. What matters is what comes out a week from tomorrow night, and then what comes out 4 weeks later. That's the polls that matter. The coaches really can't concern themselves with that. I think if, Dabo, is honest with his team, he says, people doubt us and we just got to go out and win in November. And that's what it takes. Now, is he going to fire up the Roy bus? Yeah, probably a little bit, because I was listening to a national radio show earlier today, and they made the remark that if Clemson and SMU and Miami end up all tied, and Clemson doesn't make an ACC championship game, SMU beats Miami, that Clemson wouldn't make the playoffs, that an 11-1 Notre Dame team would. And I think that there is a certain amount of disrespect that he could play there. That there are people that still doubt them, because when you look at who Clemson has played, everybody's going to go, well, what's the best team they played? Georgia, they lost 34-3.
David, I want to go back to a follow-up that kind of relates to what you just said, but a follow-up on the Heisman conversation in relation to what you just said with Clemson getting disrespected, but also Cade Klubnik, let's say he continues to put up these numbers and his Heisman conversation really doesn't go anywhere. Would you attribute that and his lack of ability to make a run at the Heisman, would you attribute that to him being in the ACC and not having the respect that other quarterbacks maybe in the SEC currently have?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for other Heisman voters, but sure, I think that there's a part of that. You take a look at the big games this past weekend, and everybody was really dialed in on, what happened between LSU and Texas A&M. Look what Indiana's doing up in the Big Ten. Look what they were able to do against Washington. What were the big ACC games this weekend? Well, maybe Miami and a woeful Florida State team. But that's kind of it. Virginia Tech, they hold serve at home against an injured Georgia Tech team. Boston College can't hold on, last Friday night against Louisville. There just hasn't been that slate of big games that makes you want to take note of the ACC. But again, it kind of starts this weekend. Pitt travels to SMU. That's going to be a big game. Both those teams undefeated in the ACC. Clemson's going to travel to Virginia Tech. Next week, they've got Louisville this week. Then they travel to Pitt. So there's some big games coming up for these teams that will enable the ACC to kind of get back in that national conversation.
David Hood, TigerNet.com, joining us here on the Fan Upstate. You tweeted a few days ago, David, that you were watching some highlights for Tajay Watson. You said you were at a game this weekend watching that. What prospects do you like most for next year that you think might step in and have an immediate impact, given where Clemson is at individual position groups in the roster?
Yeah, and kind of taking a look at Clemson's recruiting class, the guy that I'm really wanting to see is probably Gideon Davidson, the running back. I think that Clemson has kind of, maybe lacked it at, true speed at that position. I think that Gideon kind of has that speed, but I'm really looking to see Henderson. Henderson has that speed. Where are they going to put him? Are they going to put him at corner, or are they going to put him at slot? He told me the other night that he really wants to try running back. And we know Davidson's coming in. They're kind of loaded there. The kid, Braden Jacobs, the offensive lineman from down in Beaufort, Georgia. Want to see how he comes in and plays right away because, a lot of times offensive linemen are not polished when they get here. But he's about as polished as they come, and he's already got that size, 6'7", 310. He's got some guys in front of him. I want to see where he kind of fits in too. And then Logan Brooking, the tight end prospect, I'm really intrigued by him. Ari Watford is another guy that, it's kind of a defensive lineman. You really want to take a look at him. But I don't know that there's any of those other than Henderson that I go, man, I don't know if they're going to play right away somewhere. Henderson just has that kind of speed that you go, man, I think he needs to play somewhere early.
David, were you as upset or just flabbergasted watching the end of the Duke SMU game Saturday as I was? I mean, look, I had the Duke Blue Devils in my upset pick for our upset picks challenge that we do on the station, but it just seemed like Malik Murphy and crew did not want to win that game Saturday.
No, that's what I tweeted out. I tweeted that SMU was trying and doing everything they could to give Duke that game, and Duke just didn't want to take it. And then, I'm a bit of a gambler, and I'm all about, hey, if you've got a chance to go for two to win it, your team's done really well, you take it. But that would have been one spot, if I'm Manny Diaz, where my team has fought back. We've gotten 6 turnovers. I'm just going to take the point right there and try and live another down because SMU kept making mistakes. It's not like SMU was playing perfect. And it was a little bit frustrating, but I think that Rhett Lashley, the SMU coach, said it best after the game. He said, we didn't deserve to win that game. They didn't play well enough, and they didn't. And they've got to put it together, this week with Pitt coming to town. But, yeah, that's just frustrating. And then, you're kind of flipping channels there between that and watching, what's going on down in College Station with Texas A&M and LSU. And it was a lot. It was fun for me, not frustrating. It was fun.
David, you've covered Clemson for years, and you're obviously much closer to this program than Cole and I are. And, after you've done it for quite a while, you pick things up, like little pieces of memorabilia, little things here or there. Is there anything that you've got from your years of covering Clemson that maybe isn't a valuable piece of memorabilia, just something really interesting that's in your collection that, you always look at, put a little smile on your face and say, that might be one of the coolest things that any Clemson fan might have?
Yeah, my lovely bride took a bunch of the confetti from the 2016 national championship win over Alabama. She gathered up a bunch of that confetti and she made Christmas ornaments out of that national championship confetti. And then the photographer's bib that they give you for being down on the sidelines during the game. I've got a photographer's bib, and that's kind of in my, memorabilia, I guess. I don't get a lot of stuff, don't get a lot of souvenirs. Not a lot of footballs, not a lot of helmets hanging around the house here. But those are two things that I really cherish.
David, great stuff as always, man. We sure do appreciate you hopping on with us, and cannot wait to see how Clemson handles Louisville on Saturday. And we'll talk to you next week.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Absolutely. David Hood, TigerNet.com. Always fantastic. And, Diesel, maybe, just maybe, I'm being hopeful here. Maybe Louisville gives Clemson a game to where you and I and David have a little bit more riveting conversation to be had. It'd be nice.
Cole, I'll ask you the same question that I just asked David. In your years of covering football, covering high school games, covering college games, being sideline and being in the press box, like I said to David, we pick up little things here and there. Is there something that stands out to you that's in your collection that is just special? Again, it doesn't have to be valuable. It's just special.
So I've got one that I can tell you off the air that I can't say on the air. It's a great story, a fantastic story. I just cannot tell the story on the air because it's high school related, and there's about 5 people that know the story. So I'll tell you that one off the air. But in terms of on the air, I like keeping those press passes. I like keeping the press passes and just my memory's so bad. I like being able to go back and say, I was at that game, right? I have them on my book bag, have them in our office. Having the press passes, I think, is just cool because it helps you remember what games you were at. And I also make little notes on the back of them, too. But the confetti, that one's hard to beat, man. That's pretty cool.
Making Christmas ornaments out of them. I mean,
that's awesome.
They sell the clear Christmas balls that hang from the tree, right? And you can take the lids off of those things and you can stuff those things down in there. That's really cool.
That's neat.
That's a cool one. I hadn't thought of ever saving the confetti for that purpose.
And South Carolina Gamecock fans haven't either, by the way.
Ouch. Ouch, Cole. Look at you.
Sorry.
This is why people text in and call you a homer, because you take a parting shot.
You set it off. It's your fault.
When we come back, Cole, we'll get into our daily wires and whip around of what's happening in the sports world today. That's next.
Wire to Wire rolls on. We talk a little high school football, and I don't know if you realize it or not, but bam, Diesel, this Friday night, the final regular season game for the Burns Rebels high school football season is almost gone, just like that. That's why I don't like it. I love it, but I don't like it in the same breath. It goes by way too fast. It's 10 weeks, and now Burns is playing 9 because one got, cut short. And,
hey, we could always do the proposed, pro model and have like JV in the spring and varsity in the fall.
No, I'm good on that. I'll pass.
You know,
I'd like to have 12 games.
I'm just giving you a way to extend the season,
the
man.
only problem is the reality is all the other winter sports, that's why they can't. There has to be 10 games because, a lot of those players play other sports as well. So it's a tight calendar for high school athletics. But a lot of big games. Also want to remind you, Burns at Boiling Springs Friday is the final regular season game. Quick programming note, Burns is off next week. So next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday, Burns will be off, and then the playoffs will begin the very next Friday. So final regular season for Burns. We'll start there, Diesel. 58-14, Spartanburg over Burns. I told you on Friday as I was live at Spartanburg High School that, it's an interesting spot that I'm in because I am the play-by-play guy for Burns, so I have to be pro Burns, which – I can be, but I also have to call the games like I see them. And I told you Friday on air, I didn't think Spartanburg Burns would be that close if Spartanburg really showed their guns, and they did. 58-14. Spartanburg's a team, man, that they're the total package. They've got the defense, they've got the running game, and also while we're on the Spartanburg note, Diesel, I want to announce that our player of the week was a Spartanburg Viking. Let's see. It's Cam Smith, number 22 of Spartanburg. So we'll talk to him tomorrow.
Mr. Dropio, you know what? No, different Cam Smith.
Is that Cam Smith that said that?
Yeah.
For
South Carolina, yeah.
I forgot about that. I forgot all about that. But Cam Smith for Spartanburg, a fantastic
his little brother Cam.
He'll be okay with that. He had a fantastic night against Burns. We'll talk to him tomorrow, tell you more about him. But it's going to be a lot of fun talking to him. But Burns, man, they're in a tough spot. Only 3-5 on the season, Diesel. And, Burns is a football team that lost a lot last year. So it's been a tough year. We all know that. Spartanburg, however, on the flip side, Spartanburg is a team in Region 2 5A that has set themselves up for a region championship next week when they play Gaffney. That game, Diesel, will be for the region championship. Spartanburg's probably, of the teams I've seen, Spartanburg this year is the best team I've seen.
So, Cole, I've remarked to you in the break. I've also said it on the air. In high school football, you got a lot of talent discrepancies, right? You got blowout wins and losses. I'm looking at, for example, Malden Woodmont being a close football game, and I assume that was the Tuesday night game?
Yeah, I think so.
And then turned around a couple days later, Malden gets absolutely mauled 35-0 against JL Mann. You got Spartanburg putting up 58 points on Gaffney. You got Teal Hanna putting up 57 points on Easley. How many of these teams, Cole, and these big time scores, especially just this week, and if you want to stay in Region 5 or Region 5 or 5A Region 1, how many of these teams are legit really good teams, and how many of them were just playing subpar competition?
Well, a lot of it is subpar. It is. And a lot of the blowouts you see is because one team's just way better, right? And Diesel, every week I pick these games. Some of them are easy to pick. No disrespect, but some of them are. If you follow the games and the teams long enough, you know who's going to be favored, right? For example, to answer your question, Woodmont lost to Hillcrest on Saturday, 56-17. Hillcrest the week before, or the Tuesday before, beat Greenville 38-14. Let me tell you about Hillcrest. Hillcrest is a team, you and I have had the conversation a lot lately about Greenville County. 10 years ago, Greenville County wasn't really known for football, right? Well, today it's becoming more and more known for football. There are so many teams, Diesel, in Greenville County that are really much improved. What Bennett Swaggart has done at Hillcrest in just 2 years, I believe, has been phenomenal. They're a really good football team. He's got a really good staff, Diesel. So to answer your question, some of the better teams, I'd start with Hillcrest. They're really, really good. They have a quarterback named Jackson Free, who is a sophomore. And just keep keep remembering that name if you're a high school football fan. Because Jackson Free at Hillcrest is going to be really good. He already is really good, and Hillcrest showed on Saturday with him at quarterback 56-17 over Woodmont. They're one of the better teams in 5A. Remember, Hillcrest Diesel ended Burns' season last year when Burns was really good. So Hillcrest is really good. But I'll tell you what, to your point, to your question about teams that are getting good and are really good, I'll tell you what is so intriguing for me covering high school football lately compared to the 12 years I've been covering at Diesel. There are Greenville County teams like Hillcrest, like J.L. Mann, that are not taking a back seat anymore to the Spartanburg teams, the Dormans, the Burns of the world. And I love the parity. Greenville County, no disrespect, but Greenville County used to not be known for football. I mean, you know that. You've lived here a long time.
Yeah.
And it used to be the Spartanburg, the Gaffney, the Dorman, the Burns, and now Greenville County's teams are getting really good. Eastside's better. Riverside, led by a really good coach, and Matthew Rochester's good. Hillcrest, J.L. Mann. There's a lot of really good teams in Greenville, and a lot of people don't like the parity Diesel in high school sports, but you're seeing a lot more transfers and a lot more parity here recently.
Yeah, high school football is just it's a sport of massive talent discrepancies, Cole. And tell me, is there anybody you see in a region that you think could probably not that enrollment is driving them in a place, but a school that's just got so much talent at their level? I'm thinking about a possibility of West Side here, right? In 4A Region 1. Is West Side talented enough and deep enough that in the dream scenario where you could just, like you're playing Madden, you pick two teams and you put them on the field together, is West Side the type of team or somebody else the type of team that has so much talent they could bump up a level and probably still be really good?
I'll tell you this about West Side. It's funny you brought them up because they're really, really good. You and I talked to Cutter Woods, their quarterback, a few weeks ago, I believe. Maybe he was our player. It was before the season. Oh, it was when he committed to South Carolina. That's what it was. When he committed to South Carolina, we had him on. To answer your question about a team like West Side jumping up, I'll tell you this. West Side, in my opinion, could beat anybody in the state in any classification.
Wow.
Anybody. 5A, 4A, they're in 4A, 3A, 2A, doesn't matter. Even 5A, as good as 5A is, because 5A, those schools have more student athletes to choose from. West Side, led by Cutter Woods, with the Shamarius Bomar, Armani Weaver, those guys that they have on that team. There is Sherrod Richardson. They're as good as any team in the state, regardless of classification. And I'll even go a step further, Diesel, and say I'm in a lot of these groups, in high school football, in the high school football world. There are a lot of conversations being had about Gamecock fans ready to see Cutter Woods at South Carolina because they think he could be that much better. And again, Lenora Sellers isn't the problem of their offense. He's not bad. He's had a good year, but there's a lot of excitement surrounding Cutter Woods and what he's done. I've had multiple people tell me that West Side's the best high school football team they've ever seen. Ever.
Wow.
They're that good, man.
Wow, that's high praise. I mean, somebody down in Anderson County is listening to us right now, and you just put a smile on their face. And then there's somebody else whose team has to face West Side this weekend is like, oh, man.
They're tough. They're
It's
tough.
going to be a
now,
hard game.
I will also say, David Hood brought up BHP. BHP, just like Cutter Woods, Diesel is going to South Carolina. BHP's Marquise Henderson, running back for Belton Honeypath, also over in Anderson, right? This dude is legit. Marquise Henderson, Clemson fans are absolutely dying to have Marquise Henderson on their roster. He had offers from App State, Boston College, Cincinnati, Charlotte, you name it. But Marquise Henderson is going to be a problem. He's not the biggest guy in the world. I think 247 has him like 5'10", 170. So he's a little bit on the smaller side. However, if you've seen tape of this kid or seen him play in person, Diesel, at BHP, and by the way, BHP's 3A, and they're one of the better teams in 3A, this guy has had Clemson fans excited. I believe he committed in December of last year. He's had Clemson fans excited for a long time. He's one of the better players in the area.
So I'm looking down Clemson's recruiting class for the 2025.
Yeah.
And not a lot of guys from South Carolina. You've got Amari Adams from South Florence.
Mm-hmm.
You've got You've got Marquise Henderson from BHP. And those are the only two guys, Cole, right
class?
now in the class from the state of South Carolina. In your opinion, is Dabo sleeping on the high school prospects out of the state of South Carolina? Because it feels like on the surface, it feels like South Carolina is putting up a wall around the state and saying, we're not letting the best players get out of here. And meanwhile, Dabo Swinney, albeit recruiting at a quote unquote national level, regional and national level, it seems as if there's some really good talent here that he's sleeping on.
So it's interesting. Dabo, like if you ask Dabo the question, he'll tell you how much South Carolina kids mean to the program. And I believe he does mean that. However, I don't think Diesel Clemson has the same needs in every area as South Carolina. And I think that has allowed Dabo to go out of state more. If you look over his past, he's gone out of state a lot more than Shane Beamer has. Now, I will tell you this, now that we're on that conversation, Shane Beamer, I was told today, Diesel, that Jalen McGill, who was on the Saturday Scramble, or no, he came on this show. I think he was Player of the Week a few weeks ago. Jalen McGill, who is a really good running back, has a lot of interest, a young running back. I was told today that South Carolina feels good about him, and because he'll be in Columbia again this weekend for the A&M game, but he's a guy that could be a huge impact player. It's really interesting to see because you do have a lot of talent in South Carolina, but I'll give you an example, Diesel. Michael Skinner, right here in Greer, who goes to Riverside. You and I were talking about him a few weeks ago. Remember, he decommitted, and then I believe last Thursday, Diesel, he committed to Kentucky. So Michael, who's 6'3", 220, going out of state, no Dabo, no Beamer. You know, obviously, I'm sure both of those schools showed interest, but Michael is a guy that said, okay, and NIL, of course, probably had something to do with it, right? But it is interesting to see certain guys get gone and not get the attention that you would like them to get. I'll just tell you this. I'm thankful that Marquise Henderson got an offer from Clemson because he committed there. That kid's too good to go out of state. But there are some in the 2025 class, Diesel, like Shed Surratt of Gaffney, offensive lineman, committed to South Carolina, right? We mentioned Cutter Woods, who's really good. Marquise Henderson committed to Clemson. So they're getting some, but I think there's a lot more that they're not getting that are LaDainian Martin, JL Man, committed to UConn. Or wow. I think it was UConn. Yeah, I think he committed to UConn. So there's a lot of these guys that do go out of state. I'm sorry. Georgia State's where he committed. I apologize.
Interesting. Hey, he's playing right down the road, right? If you said he's from Anderson,
yep,
and then he's just down the road. You know, for him, that's less than a 2-hour trip down the road. Playing in a big city, big stadium, man. That's a good choice for a guy like that. Cole, we have a texter here, and you may still choose not to reveal this. Texted about 20 minutes ago. It was something we said at the tail end of the interview with David Hood.
Yeah.
Says, Cole, tell the story. Don't leave us in suspense.
I was just trying to think right now how much trouble I could get in if I told him. Because, yeah, I could. I'm telling you, texter, I'll tell you over a phone conversation. I'd be glad to.
He promised to tell me in the commercial break, and he didn't even tell me.
I forgot.
Yeah.
I really did forget. Texter, I'm sorry. I just cannot tell it on the radio. I can't.
There's mama listens to this show.
Look, there are some, Diesel. There are some stories that just can't be told on radio. You have some. I have a lot, probably.
That's true.
But, you know, by the way, do you know that according to 247 Sports, Cutter Woods is ranked 17th? He's ranked as the 17th best player. And looking at how many
games in the state or at his position?
In the state. So
okay.
Not at his position. Now, if you look at position, let me click quarterback here. He should be up there. And I think he's still – let me click all here. I know this is great radio. Cutter Woods, just to make sure I'm on this right, overall, I believe he was 16th in the state of South Carolina. And, you know, I know there are a lot of good quarterbacks out there. Yeah, they have him ranked at 17. So any quarterbacks ahead of him, Will Wilson out of Richland Northeastern, Columbia, he's good. But I believe that is all of the other quarterbacks. Yeah, it is. So Will Wilson and Cutter Woods are the highest two ranked quarterbacks in the class of 2025. But just to give you a quick rundown, Diesel, the top 10, LaDainian Martin from JL Man, running back, going to Georgia State. Jaden Sellers, again, these are according to 247 Sports, out of South Lawrence, going to South Carolina. Jacavius Dodd from Eastside, South Carolina. Jordan Gideon from Ridgeview in Columbia, going to South Carolina. Shed Surratt from Gaffney, going to South Carolina Diesel. And then we know Donovan Murph from Irmo a few weeks ago committed to South Carolina. And then Malik Clark. So in the top 10, Shane Beamer has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 10. That's building the wall. I mean, 6 of the top 10, according to 247 high school recruits here in the state, Shane Beamer's got coming to him.
Yeah, Shane's doing a fantastic job. You don't have to put up too many welcome homes if they're already home.
That's right.
So, I mean, Dabo will say we're getting the right guys.
Yeah.
They're getting the right guys for them, and it's hard to say that he's wrong when they're putting up 500 yards of offense, Cole, but just in the back of your mind, you wish he was doing a better job recruiting the state of South Carolina and retaining the absolute best of the best on a year-in, year-out basis. When we come back, Cole, I made a pretty bold prediction for how I saw this World Series going last week, and I don't think it's going to go that way. Let's reassess our World Series predictions, look at the matchups tonight, and see what we think might happen in Game 3 of the World Series. That's coming up next. Cole, the New York Yankees are in an 0-2 hole.
Yep.
In this World Series. 0-2 on the road to start things out. The problem is, over the course of the season, they've been better at home than they have been. They've been better on the road than they have been at home. And that's not good. That's not good. So the Yankees are going to need a big-time performance tonight from Aaron Judge and from Clark Schmidt if they want to make this a World Series. And we've talked a lot over the past week, Cole, about the ratings and how huge the ratings were for the playoffs leading up to this point. It would be an absolute tragedy for Major League Baseball if this thing ended in a sweep.
Don't say it.
In an LA
Don't
sweep.
say it.
I mean, cut this thing short, would you? Come on. We need this thing go into 7. And Major League Baseball needs this thing go into 7 because they need all the ratings they could possibly get. So, Cole, what do we think might happen tonight in game number 3? The Yankees are back at home, 94-68 on the season versus 98-64 on the season. Two really good baseball teams going at each other. Aaron Judge back in friendly confines. Better get the bat going.
No, I think with a sense of urgency, Diesel, the Yankees will win the night. Look, this is like game 7 for New York.
Yeah.
If you don't win this, you're down 0-3. You're toast.
You're done.
You're done. Stick a fork
They're not
in
battling back.
No, not from 0-3 in the World Series against this Dodger team. I think they'll have a sense of urgency. I also think they have a starting pitching advantage tonight. They're in a must-win game with a guy I do feel good about. I know the Dodgers have been good, and I know Freddie Freeman has been really good, but you can overcome a 2-0 series lead. You can't overcome a 3-0 series lead.
Yeah, baseball's a game of streaks. You know, you get hot, you can rally, you can rail off 3-4 of them in a row. But Cole, my prediction of Yankees in 6 ain't gonna happen.
Well, they'd have to win out.
Yeah, they'd have to win straight out. And I don't think that's going to happen because they're not going back to LA in a couple of nights. Even if the Yankees win 3 in a row, they're not going back to LA and winning on LA's home field in game number 6.
Here's what's interesting. The Dodgers have had a big advantage lately. They've won 4 out of the last 5, just in head-to-head meetings. Of the last 5, when you're talking about some gambling, some money being played, the overs hit 4 out of the 5 times. There's been a lot of runs scored. And the Yankees are a team that they have good pitching. You feel like tonight they have a good pitching, but at the same time, Walker Buehler is not terrible. We've seen him twice this season in the postseason, but I think Clark Schmidt's going to have to go 5 innings. He's going to have a good game, and he's going to have to keep this hot lineup down. The question, though, is just how long can he keep them down? Because even with their injuries, the Dodgers have had major injuries, Diesel. But even with those injuries and the Shohei Ohtani injury now, that's still a deadly lineup. And when they get going, it just kind of feels like they're a team of destiny. But I do think – I don't think it'll go 7 like I originally predicted. But I do think the Yankees get a must-win game tonight, with it being in New York obviously helps a lot.
Yeah, I'll be tuning in. I'll be watching this entire game. Walker Buehler, Cole, he loses a lot of games. He's 1-6 this season, and I'm trying to figure out why that's happening, why Walker Buehler's team is not picking him up behind him. His ERA is up. His win-loss total is down. Obviously, it's on the bad side of that tally. So
it's weird. Some pitchers just don't get run support the way others do. I remember as a Brave fan, Julio Teheran was the world's worst.
Have a lot of great games.
He never got run support.
Yeah. So in 2024, Clark Schmidt has a 2.85 ERA, 2.85 ERA for Clark Schmidt, and Walker Buehler has on the season a 5.38. So he's definitely not getting any support behind him. The Yankees have to get it done tonight, Cole.
They do.
If they don't, this thing is in a really, really tough spot.
And to your point, that's the last thing Major League Baseball wants. They've got to have this at least go 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, you can't build this whole thing up like it's going to be the World Series of the century and then have it fall flat in a sweep.
Then the conversation would be maybe the National League's just that much better than the American League.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
And that's not been the conversation for a long time. And look, you can't really account for guys like Freddie Freeman hitting the first ever Grand Slam walk-off in World Series history. I mean, that's a phenomenal story, but you want to be able to have 7 nights of those phenomenal stories, right? So it'll be fascinating to watch. First pitch is at 8:08 tonight.
I cannot wait. We'll talk about it tomorrow, Tolos. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. Let's do it again tomorrow, 3 to 7, right here on the Fan Upstate.